So all join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Blundy was unable to join us this evening, so you're stuck with me as the chair tonight. So with that, I'll start with roll call. Supervisor Lewis,
Present.
Supervisor McCartney,
Here.
Supervisor Coyle, our new supervisor, is unable to join us as he is ill this evening. On our agenda, he has been sworn into office officially. Next meeting, we will have more of a ceremonial swearing in and go from there. So moving on to item number 5, community announcements. A reminder, during this portion of the agenda, residents and youth organizations may call in to make a special announcement or contact the township at admin@lmt.org to request a special announcement be added to the agenda. That being said, do we have anyone on the line with a community announcement?
There's no one on the line at this time.
All right, thank you. LMT's Environmental Advisory Council will be heading up the effort to revitalize our Birdtown program. If you want to be part of a local group making the Birdtown PA goals a reality in LMT, contact Jean Bray at jjyardley56@gmail.com. The next ad hoc property committee public forum on the creation of a long-term master plan for Patterson Farm will be held on September 26th. This township-owned property is at a crossroads with historic buildings requiring expensive repairs. Let's see, the public is asked to become engaged by A, attending the public Zoom meetings held the second Thursday each month. B, learning more at lmt.org/community/Patterson Farm. And C, attending future public forums. Kim Rock from Keller Williams Realty is hosting a shredder event on Saturday, September 30th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the LMT pool parking lot, 1050 Edgewood Road. For more information or register, you can go to www.shredbucks.com. That's shredbucks.com. The Environmental Advisory Council will also be hosting their styrofoam and recycling event on Saturday, October 28th, 2023, from 10 a.m. to noon outside the LMT building at 1100 Edgewood Road. And LMT will be hosting a blood drive for the Red Cross on Friday, November 3rd. From 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the meeting room at the Township Building. To sign up or get more information, log on to redcrossblood.org and enter sponsor code Lower Makefield, all one word, capital L, capital M, when you're looking at the sponsor code. Any supervisors have any public comment?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add an item to the agenda under 14B.
Okay.
And the motion would be a new agenda item 14B, Susan Circle paving and punch list items.
Second.
All right. Any supervisor comment on adding that item? Hearing none, any public comment on adding that item? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Carries 3-0. Now, so typically the last couple of years, public comment has been at the end of the meeting. As chair, I get the prerogative to move it up to the front if we so choose. So what I like to do in this situation is to offer, since public comment is typically at the end, keep it at the end, but also offer public comment at the beginning. So that's public comment on any non-agenda items. So if you see an item on the agenda, for example, the flood update of Mapleville, that'll stay on the agenda. So if you have public comment on that, I would wait till that item on the agenda. But if there's something else that you'd like to speak about now that's not on the agenda, I will open it up to anyone that wants to come up to the podium. Come up to the podium, please. Just so the recorder can hear you. So BOMA's presentation, we will There's going to be, typically what we do with public comment is 3 minutes per person. And then, and that's an agenda item. So that's going to be, is that mic working?
Yeah, I think it's.
All right. So that public comment would be as part of that. And if there's any follow-up, we can do follow-up as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
More than 3 minutes?
So that being said, the floor, come on up to the mic.
Sorry, I didn't look at the agenda.
It-
Can we talk about Maple Vale early? I have to go to work very early in the morning tomorrow. I don't want to be here till 10.
It is early in the agenda.
Selfish reason, but.
No, I understand. We have a few quick ones to get through. There might be one that's a little bit longer, but fairly quick items. Any general public comment on anything? If so, please come to the podium. As a reminder, please state your name and that you're a resident of Lower Makefield Township.
Yes, Greg Coble, 63 Griffin Way. I was just wondering if you had an update on the crosswalks on Big Oak Road.
I'll let our manager, because we have
Okay.
been talking about it.
Sure. So over the course of probably the past, I guess, week, the time between the two meetings, we have been working with the township's traffic engineer and discussing sort of options to address some of the concerns that were expressed relative to the construction activity that occurred on Big Oak Road. We will be meeting with the respective HOAs here within probably the next week to discuss that and provide an update. So we're in the process of scheduling that. So we are discussing the issue, and we should have an update here shortly.
Any other public comment?
Mike Rossi, 390 Twig Lane. And I just wanted an update. I was here 4 months ago and we've been here multiple times since. And with the flooding and everything else that went on, we've kind of laid back, but we still have a 150-foot cell tower going up in our backyard. Or planning to go up with in front of the zoning board just next month. We asked 4 months ago for counsel since Solicitor Fazlor had to recuse himself. We've heard no update. I mean, rightfully so.
It's the last name is what their last is
Oh,
Mr. Truelove. I knew what they were giggling about. Sorry.
My wife will be more amused than anybody.
Yeah.
I'll second that one. Sorry about that.
No, no apology.
But, for us, we've appointed, or you've asked for outside counsel.
Yep.
I'd like to understand where this board stands in supporting the neighbors and not having this 150-foot cell tower raised in our backyards, putting the community and all of the planning that's been done in Lower Makefield at risk.
So I can give you what I know as an update in my perspective. And Mr. Kratzer, please correct me if I misspeak on anything. I believe that's on the zoning hearing board meeting, which is October 17th. 17th agenda. We are going to have one more Board of Supervisors meeting for our first meeting in October. I forget the date, but it's our next meeting, October 4th. Thank you. At that point, I would anticipate that it will be on the agenda for discussion and a vote. We have hired counsel to update our ordinance. Generally speaking, that isn't what you're asking about, but it's related. And I think at that time, the first October meeting would be when the board would entertain a motion to participate, oppose, etc. I know personally, last time when it first came up, I made a motion to participate. I haven't changed my opinion. I'll continue to do that. Other board members have differing opinions on a continuum. I think maybe, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I think we'll have a more robust discussion at our next meeting. And we should have a full board at that point because we're missing 2 members tonight. So that's my take. If any other board member wants to add to that, feel free. And if I missed anything,
No.
let me know.
That's it.
Okay. Any other public comment? All right. Anyone on the line?
There's no one online at this time.
All right. So if you think of public comment later in the evening, I'll open it up again just in case. All right. So I'll close public comment. Let's see. The next item is consider approval of minutes for September 6th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, call to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, carries 3-0. Treasurer's report, Mr. McCartney.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion for the interfund transfers for August 2023 in the amount of $911,309.63.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any board comment? Public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries 3-0.
And I'd make a motion to consider approval of the warrants list from August 21st, 2023, September. Well, I guess I should do it one at a time because I'm not going to add these up. Consider approval of warrant list from August 2021, 2023 in the amount of $1,052,354.78.
Second.
I get a motion and a second. Any board comment? Public comment? Hearing none. Call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries 3-0. Next one.
Make a motion to approve the warrants list for September 5th, 2023 in the amount of $936,413.06.
Second.
All right, get a motion and a second. Any board comment? Public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries
And
3-0.
finally, a motion for the September 18th, 2023 warrants list in the amount of $482,526.99.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any board comment? None. Public comment? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. Next item. We now have, gonna have a presentation from BOMA, which is the Big Oak Whitetail Management Association regarding our township deer management program. You can sit if you'd like, or you can stand. It's up to you.
Hello, my name is Todd Huber. I am a member of Big Oak Whitetail Management Association. Thank you for having us here tonight. This is basically, I know there's some concerns over new tract of land that was added to our list of properties. So we're just going to give a presentation about basically who we are and what we do and how we do it. And then I guess we go from there. Hopefully it'll allay some fears from residents. So I know there was some concern about it being a firearm hunt, but we are archery only. We're approved by LMT to help control the deer population. We've been doing this since 2009 without incident. All our hunters abide by the State Game Commission rules and regulations. All hunters have background checks from the state police that are completed and passed, and we also have to pass proficiency testing with archery tackle every year to ensure that you're capable with the equipment that we're using. Each hunter is required to carry their township issued hunter ID as well, and all hunters carry liability insurance. All of the hunting occurs well within the property boundary lines stated by the townships. And we are required to have a safety zone of more than 50 yards from any occupied structure. And we not only go inside the property line, but stay when we post inside the property lines, we also stay well within that when we're hunting. All hunters also hunt from elevated positions, meaning we're up in tree stands, so there's not going to be any risk of arrows going into property owners' properties, cause that could result in possible injuries or property damage. We are, typically shoot 20 to 30 yards maximum from an elevated position, and the arrow would land in the ground well inside of the boundaries. Just a little bit, the first deer harvested from each of our hunters is required to be donated to Hunters Sharing the Harvest, which provides thousands of meals annually to Bucks County food banks. Last year, it was approximately 600 pounds of meat was donated, equating to about 2,400 meals, plus 4 deer that were processed and distributed to families in need. Hopefully that answers everybody's questions. There's not much more than that. And I guess, do I stay for questions or do you save those for the end? I'm not sure what you want to do.
So what we typically do is first have board questions. And then, once the board is done with there are questions, then we would open it up to public questions.
Okay.
We're not making a motion or anything like that, so it's more of a Q&A period. Just like when for those in the audience that want to discuss, we're going to handle it pretty similar to how we handle most things, where the board will have our chance to ask questions and provide some feedback, and then I'll open it up to essentially public comment and questions. So everyone has Q&A, and then there may be a little back and forth on that too, but
Okay.
this is more informational and see how we can address concerns and move forward in a fair way. So, I'll ask our solicitor and our manager if you have anything that you'd like to say prior to board questions.
I don't have anything. I mean, I guess it depends on what the questions might be, but I have nothing at this point.
Yeah, I have nothing beyond the information that was shared at this point either.
If anything from you.
Same here, Mr. Chairman.
It's always good to get their feedback before we start asking questions. So, I guess I'll ask a few questions. These might be repeat from last time you were here. And I think you probably just answered one in your opening. In terms of proximity to homes and potential for impacts, you mentioned you had to be at least 50 yards from a structure. Is that?
State Game Commission regulations are for archery tackle, you have to be 50 yards from any occupied structure on any private property. That's the state law safety zone. We are beyond that. We actually, when we post the properties with the township provided signs, we go within, off of the outside property line, so as not to be like in your face with the posting for property owners, so they don't have to stare right at their backyards. But if they were to walk inside the woods, they would see it. So then we hunt well within that too. So
What's in terms of the posting, what's the regularity, or how many signs per foot, or how often do you post the property?
with typical private property posting, it can be different, but we were just trying to put it on what would look like accessible. There might be trails or ways into the woods, so people walking into the woods would see it readily, but it would be facing the outside perimeter,
right?
Like facing away from where we're hunting.
For those of us in the township that might be trailblazers, let's say, is there any postings away from trails? Is it just in case? Let's say every 50 feet or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't posted every single one, but typically we just try to do the outside perimeter. It's not, other than, available trees, which aren't, they don't grow.
No, I
Not certainly like every 50 feet or every 50 yards that we could post one.
And what color? What are the postings?
They're white with red writing.
Almost like a warning label. Not to put words in. You can show me when afterwards. I know you got a lot of stuff there. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then, what was I gonna say? In terms of notice to surrounding homes, are you just posting, or are you sending out mailings, or how?
Loma does not do that.
Yeah, township does that. So yes, so there was direct mailing is provided to all adjacent property owners in addition to the posting of the property.
So is it only because we've been through our public notice process before for other things, not statutory, but is it just adjacent properties or within however many feet?
I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of notices that were sent out to folks. So I don't know what our notice provisions were no different this year than have been in the past. So I don't know what, perhaps Jim knows the radius that they've typically used, but there were hundreds of notices that were sent out.
And timing of the hunt, number of days from month to month, number of days, time of day. Can you brief that again?
Once again, we follow Game Commission rules. So from the time that it is archery season is open in the Wildlife Management Unit 5D to the end is when we have access to hunt.
So those are, I have those dates if you
September-
want,
it's
September the
September.
16th of 2023 through November 24th of 2023. And then it resumes December the 26th of 2023 through January 27th of 2024. Most of the properties that BOMA hunts are Monday through Saturday only. There's 2 Sundays in November that are exceptions that they're doing hunting on Sundays that again are permissible under state law and the Game Commission regulations. And then as it relates to 5 Mile Woods, that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday only. No hunting on Thanksgiving. And then that facility, recognizing that that's a little bit different than most of those facilities, is closed during the periods of hunt. And then is open on the other days that I did not mention. So is open on Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays.
Effectively, I'm not assuming, I'm estimating. Effectively, we have three out of 4 or 5 months where we have an active hunt 6 days a week for several properties.
It's fair.
Is that it's about right? Plus or minus a few days.
Yeah, and you could speak to this, but the other limiting factor is, again, they're required to have tags. So the organization only obtains so many tags. So it's not.
Did I read 100 tags?
I think you said you got a little bit less than 100 tags this year.
This year, and it's gotten limited where the Game Commission, rather than just being able to purchase as many antlerless tags as you wanted after the over-the-counter sales go in place, that you're only allowed, each hunter is only allowed to possess 6 antlerless tags at a time. So last year, before it went online, it used to be over the counter basically, but when it almost all went online, it went from having tags available all year to they sold out before the season opened. So we were just limited to what we already possess versus being able to harvest an animal and then replace the tag with another afterwards. So
How many tags do you have in total this year?
it's just under 100. I think
So
it's,
once you hit 100, once you hit whatever that number is, plus
we're done.
about 100, you're done.
And
So
then
it might not go for 3 months.
And then just that 100 is your organizational total, your organization's total, but you're also hunting in Upper Makefield Township as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Oh, so does that cover lower and upper?
It's,
Makefield, that
yeah, that's
100?
upper and lower because they're both part of 5D, Wildlife Management Unit 5D. So
So
and then
it could be significantly less than 3 months if you have a lot of hunters getting a harvest early.
the number of hunters will probably reduce because some people are in the woods hunting quite a lot more than others. So they may finish up relatively early.
Okay, so then we'd be able to, if that was the case, then we'd be able to let everybody know that you're done.
I think that would be up to the township, but I mean, however they would want to work it, I guess we could have a talk regarding that, but.
And then one of the other things, it's bow hunting, not long gun or not rifle.
No firearms at all.
So that we've talked before, I'm not a bow hunter, but I have a bow, so I'm used to shooting a bow. You said 20 or 30 yards at most typically.
Yeah, usually 20 within. I mean, if 30 is the max, most hunters will try to take an animal effectively.
Especially if you're in a forested area, you don't have to.
Yeah, the thing is we are very aware of the impact it could have if you wound an animal and then wanders onto somebody else's property. So we want it close in so we do not have to pursue the animal, outside of the perimeter, which we wouldn't do just by trespassing. If we had something like that happen, we would certainly seek permission. And then if the permission was denied, you go through the Game Commission. So we follow all of the rules.
Okay. And I apologize for asking all these questions, but two other questions are more data oriented. Do we have any updated information on the estimated deer population size in Lower Makefield? And then I'll just follow. My second part of that question is, do we have any data on the effectiveness of the program in culling the deer population in Lower Makefield for future, to long-term future of the size of the herd?
Can't really speak so much to what the current population is, but I know in the past we had biologists review it and the deer population per acre was much over what it could actually sustain. And I know there was a high incidence of vehicle collisions in the past, which I believe have reduced significantly over the years.
Chief, you had some data on deer collisions, if I recall.
Yeah, the only way to really gauge the significance of the hunt is by what he said as far as the deer population counts, but also the incidence of dead deer on the highway and auto accidents, auto versus deer. So we keep statistics each year on all the auto accidents and where they occur. But in the case of deer, we keep a count. And I could just give you some idea of the count, like, and then compare 2019 to date on 2023. So in 2019, there were 123 incidents, and those incidents refer to deers found dead on the highway. It's obvious that they were hit by a vehicle, but there's no vehicle there to do an accident report. The other category is actual accidents where accident reports are taken. So in 2019, there were 123 incidents and there were 28 accidents. In 2022, there were 62 incidents and 15 accidents. So it went down dramatically. And in 2023, to date, there were 41 incidents and 12 accidents. So just to give you an idea of the change in the statistics.
And then the only other question I have, now let everyone else bug you. Can you just remind us what the hunters do with the deer that have been harvested?
Well, as previously stated, it's a requirement of our organization to donate the first deer harvested by each hunter to hunter sharing the harvest to go to the food banks. Other than that, everybody, some hunters will donate more than their first one. I personally, anything I get, I take care of myself. I process, I feed my family with it all year long, share it with my family, friends. And that's what the majority of us do.
Sure. Yeah, just a couple quick questions. How many tags did you have last year as a group?
That's a great question. I don't know exactly how many we ended up with because each hunter, there were some hunters that are more successful than others. They might have started out with 6, but they harvested 12, 13 deer. And then other hunters weren't as successful and didn't use all their tags. So
Okay.
it was more than that, but I don't know. I couldn't give you an exact number.
How many did you in total did you actually tag? How many deer total last year?
I have the information that Jim had previously provided. I can help you out. So again, this is over 2 jurisdictions. So, well, it's actually over 3 jurisdictions. There were 89 deer in total last year. 40 of those being in Lower Makefield Township, 41 in Upper Makefield, and then 8 in Newtown.
So out of the 100 tags that you're looking at for this year, you're probably going to use about half of them. Is that what you would imagine?
Lower Makefield, probably, yes.
Okay. And the primary area that you were most successful in would be, is there an
It
area?
varies year to year.
Okay, because they kind of migrate, they get an inkling where you guys are going to be, and they kind of
And
move
a
around.
lot of these properties we've been at since 2009. So they move out sometimes, they don't just sit around and wait. Either they move into the neighborhoods and you get them at certain, peak times or even during the breeding season. When
Sure. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you guys have Soulberry Township yet or no?
do not, no.
Okay. I know.
They were interested in much higher counts in Soulberry. So I think they went with a different program. They were
Okay.
back at sharpshooters the last time we talked, but I don't know what they ever did.
Okay. I guess they're looking for more deer to be killed.
They were looking for thousands.
Thousands. Wow. Okay. So I think we covered the accident numbers, which are helpful. Maybe I have long been a supporter of the work that you guys do. I know that, looking at the numbers we get between like 49 and like 90 deer in LMT in a year, what have you. and it makes a difference. And I think we've been doing this now for, before I was a supervisor.
It was
15 years.
2009, we may have started.
Yeah, we have never had an issue. And I know, for example, I couldn't qualify to be a bow hunter. I don't have the skills that would make your requirements. Because they are that stringent, and we've had, you know, in my mind, it has been a very successful program at no cost to the township. So I wouldn't have recommended you to Soulberry if I didn't think, you know, you guys were successful here. So I've been generally supportive of the program and think it makes a difference.
I guess the only other question I have is, you know, we know the total numbers. Do we know if from a timing perspective, do you typically get it in a given year? Is there a pattern where you might get more at the beginning versus the middle, the end, even spread?
I mean, I would have, I don't have that information handy, but I know that a lot of times in the beginning is very successful. And then as the hunt properties are pressured, it can get a little trickier. You may have to move around on that property to, you know, get where they're at. Because they'll change their patterns. And I mean, during the rut, when the bucks are active and chasing deer, the does around, that can be productive too, because, you know, they're worried about that.
Any other questions from the board? All right, with that, I'll open it up to public comment. Actually, if you could sit here maybe at one of the mics, whatever one works, you could sit here, and then whoever has public comment can come up to the podium.
You want to tap that to see if it's on?
Tap it to make sure it's on.
Not.
Either way, he'll come out, check.
He's coming to assist.
All right, thank you.
Just a reminder, as part of, you're an old pro at this, but please state your name and Lower Makefield Township or not.
Yeah.
President.
Doug Marshall, Lower Makefield Township. I got up first. I apologize, but I'll be very quick. The first question I have is I live in Yardley Crest off Big Oak, and there are deer back there. And I'm wondering, how do you determine what areas you're going to be hunting? And the other question I had, and I'll throw to the board, and I guess this will sound just very naive because I'm somebody who doesn't like to think about deer suffering, but has there ever been any thought to like a fertility program where the doe are shot with a, you know, a dart, which makes them infertile or sterile, or is that just completely off the mark? So those are the thoughts I have. How do you determine the areas in which you'll be hunting? Because we have deer where we are. Secondly, what about that second alternative? Thank you.
As far as where we hunt, basically is determined by township access properties, you know, basically owned by the township. And we do have cooperative properties, residents who have properties that would support us without encroaching on neighborhoods, you know, other neighbors. So it would be a minimum size. We have a fellow on our board who does mapping, and he'll go on there and look and see if there's bordering properties, see if it's, you know, if it's doable without causing any problems for anybody. Yes, sir. As far as the fertility, I don't know. I've heard of things in the past. I can't really.
Mr. Marshall, I can answer both those. There's an ordinance 141-11, hunting and trapping, which it prohibits hunting or trapping on township owned property, except to people who are expressly designated and authorized by the township, which would be BOMA, or its authorized officials, et cetera, to undertake and or actively engage in carrying out any actions, et cetera, or other obligations related to or in connection with deer management program or on lands owned, leased, or controlled by Lower Makefield Township, whether in the park system or otherwise. So that's the general scope in terms of the areas. As far as the fertility program, I'm not a hunter. I just know when this program was started years ago, Chief, you may remember this, that same question was posed, and I think there were practical challenges with it, what I recall vaguely, but I don't want to, you know, quote directly, but I do, that was discussed before.
It's typically governed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission. And they would, and other biologists, where they would have to set up a program where if it made sense from a scientific perspective to do something like that. And that's not always that common. That's
Thank you.
I was gonna say, additionally, farmland preservation has, people that lease the property for farming. As part of that, they sometimes have a few tags for the farmer that's leasing the property, if they so choose to hunt on farmland preservation property. And that's part of that agreement. But by and large, you guys tend to, BOMA tends to go after those properties as well.
Any other public comment on this issue? Come on up to me.
Mike Rossi, 390 Twig Lane. Just a question. Do you DMAP permits at all or just the straight over the counter permits?
We just do straight over the counter permits. There was some red tag last year. We didn't get applied that, the farmers did not apply in time this year.
So as a township, the one thing I would ask is if we could look into specific township property to add DMAP permits, which are for overpopulation, to potentially provide some extra permits for them to hunt, understanding that, you know, I'm a hunter myself and we are severely overpopulated. Fortunately, our deer do walk the sidewalks in this community more than the roads, which is unusual, but potentially getting some DMAPs for overpopulated areas may actually help us as well.
Thank you.
We trained our deer to walk sidewalks.
They walk where the signs are?
Yeah, exactly.
Any other public comment?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Sorry, before you speak, if anyone has if there's a lot of folks that have public comment, so I don't have to keep calling. If you want to stand in a line, you can stand down the middle of the line there and just keep coming up. You don't have to wait for me to. That's all right.
Jim Goldstein, West Wellington Road in the Yardley Run development. Regarding the safety of our children, God forbid, a stray child is struck by a stray arrow. I'd like to know what BOMA's plan is to ensure that immediate medical attention is given to the child as quickly as possible. Is there a plan?
911, but that's not going to happen. Nobody here is going to do that.
In the event that it does, there's no guarantee that it doesn't.
That's true. I mean, call 911.
Thank you.
Is there any requirement for BOMA members to have CPR first aid certification or anything like that?
Not currently.
Not currently, okay. And then at the same time, markings or clothing that BOMA members wear when they're hunting? Or
Are there?
you wearing blaze orange, anything like that? How do you?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm just
wearing camouflage.
No, I understand. People are going to ask. So I had that thought. Yes, ma'am. If you could state your name and
My name is June Farley. I live in Yardley Run on Fountain Road.
thank you.
Okay, so since I'm not used to this, can I ask questions?
Absolutely.
And I also have a statement with a petition for all the residents there. So how does it work? Just
So
ask
there's
questions first?
You can.
Sorry.
No. I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
If there's a petition, you can read it into the record. Or you can do it up front too, and then you can hand it to us. Yeah, I'd ask you to hand it to the manager.
Okay.
And then you could ask your questions.
Thank you.
Or you could do it back. It's up to you.
So I will read the petition, I think, first, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Because that kind of is the sentiment. I do have some questions too. Maybe BOMA could answer. So just a personal statement, in my home where I live on 1289, I can see through this property. It's a very small piece of land. I've been on everybody on my street, their patio, their backyard. We've looked at that is our concern. So here is the statement. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today as a representative of Yardley Run Development and the surrounding residents to address a matter of most importance. One that concerns not only the welfare of the community, but the ethical treatment of the wildlife that share our home. I am here to advocate on behalf of many residents, 43 families, who feel that many residents for the removal of Yardley Run from the Yardley Run wooded area. I present to you a petition signed by residents along the Yardley Run track, residents in the development of Newtown Reserve, and homes off of Lindenhurst and homes off of Twining. So those homes all surround the property. You may say hunting deer is a necessary means of controlling populations. However, we as a community firmly believe that we do not feel the deer have been a problem for us. And our sense of safety, security are at risk given the proximity to our homes. I understand all the legal ramifications, 50 yards from the dwelling. I've contacted PA Gaming, got all of that. However, we're all very close in proximity. And the one piece of property, once he shows you the map, is extremely narrow. Okay, many residents are concerned and have fears of stray injured deer, stray arrows, the possibility of viewing this slaughter from our dens. Most of our families can view the woods via the dens, and in many homes, residents see right through the wooded area, most of us. Concerns for the children are the highest priority, as many residents have stated, and one resident said children across Lindenhurst. I did stop by and speak to that resident, but I didn't get the signature. Their children cross the basin, retention basin, and enter the woods to reach the properties off of Lindenhurst. And they were not notified of the hunting. They have children that would cross through there. And we are certain that others were not informed, as she told me. After much discussion over 3 days with residents, I walked everywhere for 3 days. We agree strongly opposing the deer hunting in our area directly behind our homes. It came to quite a surprise, I will tell you personally, 2 days before the hunting that I got notification. I've been in Yardley Run for 20 years and I've never received notification. I called the township just as a little personal note, and I was emotional. I mean, I couldn't teach for 2 days almost. And she said, the words were directly, we have no obligation to notify you. It is our property. I informed her that it's actually the township's property, and I'm a resident there. She also said, we did notify you. There are postings in the woods. And I said, I don't walk in the woods. My dog runs in there every day in the backyard. And she said, well, that's where we post it. And she also said, we do not have to post it at the edge of the woods. Very upsetting. In conclusion, we urge you to remove the Yardley Run wooded area from the property to be utilized for hunting. We suggest a more, progressive approach, as was mentioned earlier, basically. And I would like to just take a moment to express gratitude for your attentiveness in offering this session, okay? And that our voices should be heard and we should be notified, okay? Your willingness to hear is greatly appreciated. I will submit to you all of the signatures and of the citizens, a map as well, okay? Do I give that to someone?
You can
Okay.
give it to our manager. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Can I real quickly finish? Yeah.
Before you,
Yeah.
if
Just-
you, whoever's speaking, please speak into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Just,
Okay.
what people at home
Yeah.
can't hear a thing from anyone back there if you're not at the microphone.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that everyone's comments are heard.
Right. When BOMA presents you with hunting areas, are you aware of all the dimensions?
So when they present, I'll say my piece.
Sure.
When they present parcels, our township staff who have maps of all the parcels.
Right.
County parcel.
Are they aware of the dimensions of the property?
Typically, they'll give us.
Okay.
We'll go through them property by property. And
Here's the retention basin. This is a very narrow space. This is Newtown Township property.
So-
I live here. I can see directly through the lady who lives over there.
do you have anything to add before I say anything?
I do not as it relates to
Okay.
this.
The dimensions.
this Specific parcel.
Does BOMA present where they would like to hunt to you?
So they do
Just-
provide maps on that specific parcel. I think there's an area that's off limits. Is that what I recall on the map
This is
that
the
Jim?
private property of Betsy and Gail.
Oh,
And
no.
they own this property, so that is part of the wooded area.
No, I think it had to do with, when I said that, when I
Yeah.
was talking, something that you had marked up perhaps to show the 50 yards from an occupied structure. Maybe
That-
that.
that
Yeah,
was
there
gonna be
was
my-
a recovery area. I got it
And
from
the-
PA.
What's the width of I don't have the parcel map open, but the width
Yeah,
of
the-
the narrow is.
I don't have the dimensions of the recovery area. I know it.
And I
runs
call up
here.
Mr. Ward. He's our map guy.
I
and
knew
he
you
has
were, I
actually
figured you were.
mapped all of these dimensions out and
You
what.
have it. The township does.
Here.
He has a copy from the township. They gave it to us. They were very helpful. They gave us that.
No,
You're-
but so this
Yeah.
gentleman here is, if you could introduce yourself, it's from Boma.
That's on too.
Good.
My name's Michael Ward, and I am also another Boma hunter. Is as far as mapping and drawing as far as measurements. How is it, the narrowest width is what you're asking for? Or
That was, I believe my neighbor said 40 feet. Just so you know,
from the
her deck is 10 feet from the Ed wooded area. So I live here and I believe my, thought it was 300 yards. I know you have to be 50 yards from the dwelling. The point is, this is too close to our homes. That's where we stand. It's just too close. Your recovery area was drawn on a map. So you're not planning to, you can only recover here. PA Gaming Commission said that if the deer runs into our yard, you would be trespassed. That's what we were told. But so if a dead deer is injured, runs into our yard, neighbors are worried that could happen. I mean, so that's where we stand. But I was asking, do you give the dimensions to the township for the hunting area?
it is something we can provide.
But
we've
you don't
provided
usually,
in the
or-
past. So, if there's a tract of land and the township has questions and want to know offsets
Yeah,
and
if it's a-
boundaries, it's
yeah.
something we could look up.
So typically they'll ask for a parcel or to discuss a parcel.
Okay.
Township staff will review it and discuss it and make
Okay.
recommendations to the board about whether or not it should be included. Not
Does it
every-
have dimensions?
Not every, give me one second. Not every parcel is a square or a circle and.
Right.
Right? So portions of parcels may be off limits because of the 50-yard requirement. That's the state law. That's not township.
I know.
That's willy-nilly saying 50 yards or saying, yeah, you can or you can't. That's just game commission law. So they cannot be within 50 yards of a structure. So eyeballing what you have in front of you there. I would say a good chunk of that, agree with me if you'd like, or tell me I'm wrong. I'd say a good chunk of is north that way.
I believe so.
I'll just say a good chunk of the bottom third to half of that property would be off limits
That's not what I was.
because of proximity.
Okay.
So for active hunting, if it's on the parcel and if they hunt a deer, let's say in the northern part that's wider and
Where I live and can see through,
and
right?
it may run to the south to a narrower part, they could get the deer. They wouldn't leave it there to die if it's struggling. But they wouldn't be able to actively hunt there from a tree stand or something in that section. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
My neighbor is a hunter. He said there is a tree stand here. So that's why one thing. I marked him on that one. Does the township provide money to this organization for this? I'm just curious. We weren't.
Do we provide what? I'm sorry.
Do you provide funds to BOMA?
No.
No. Okay. And
That's correct, Dave. Right? I'm not aware of anything ever in a. budget
That
proposal.
is correct.
Okay.
Receive no money.
okay. Have there been hunts in this parcel in the past?
Can you give us the history on this particular part? Is this?
That property. This is
You don't
first-
have that. Okay.
This is our first.
First time here.
Yes.
Has anyone from BOMA or the organization hunted illegally in that area?
I'm not sure. I mean, I shouldn't say,
Well-
I'm not sure.
What's that?
Well,
I wouldn't know.
do we have
You don't
any
know?
record? of-
Someone had mentioned it in my neighborhood. I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Well, so,
Listed it
Okay.
or to.
yeah. So what I would recommend,
Yeah.
since you do have questions written down,
Yeah.
I would recommend emailing our township manager for a formal response so we can, if
Yeah.
there's any that we
Look
need
into
to
it.
dig into, we want to give you the correct answer.
Okay. No problem. My neighbors gave me some to ask.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a
Thank you.
I have a quick question for the BOMA guys. So this property new, what made you identify this property as a target area for the hunt?
Basically, we're always trying to look for new township properties to
Okay,
cycle through.
okay,
Some of them get tired after a little while and we hope to increase harvest by getting new properties.
okay.
Every year we've tried on different ones.
And just as a follow-up, so what I was told, again, obviously, I'm new here. But what I was told is that this property was hunted in the past by BOMA. And there was a period of time in which it was not. And then this was a request that came from BOMA this year for resuming that. I don't know, again, I don't know the accuracy of that, but
Yeah, I'll
that's
have
what
to
was
look
conveyed
into
to me.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, and sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I, at this point, I'd rather just eliminate this whole thing and say, take it off the list and then just move on. I mean, I'd rather, I mean, clearly, and I love what you guys do. I think what you guys do is amazing. I just don't think that this is worth what you guys are
I
gonna put
don't-
on tour.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just my opinion. I need another member to agree with me, but I think that going through this entire process for the next 2 hours and listening to them not wanting you guys there, it's not worth it. That's just how I feel.
Understandable.
We're fine with that. The majority of our boards here, if it's that much of a,
Cool. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
We need a motion or we just, any other comment?
I think the record should just reflect that BOMA has agreed to remove it from the list. I don't think there has to be a formal motion on
We
that.
name the parcel for the.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to designate where the parcels located. It's the parcel adjacent to Yardley Run and I'm sorry, Newtown.
It's parcel number 20-004-172. Owned by Lower Makefield Township. It's 19.84 acres.
I guess the only thing I would ask is just to make sure we have, if there is another side to it, is there any compelling reason for this property to be hunted by anybody? Has there been any complaints about
Not,
deer or
not,
anything?
not to my,
there at all?
not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, that's, you want to just, if there's another side of the story, I'd like to hear, it, but it doesn't sound like there is one. So if John?
Yeah, well, since the sense of the board is such that, and BOMA has agreed, my main concern here is that, you know, we're not too far from another parcel, like a farmland preservation parcel that has been hunted. So if that's been hunted, the deer are going into this parcel, most likely. So, you know, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. So with that, I'm okay with it. But in general, people got to realize that, well, I know that people like deer and people think deer are attractive. You know, everybody who's out there saying we don't want to kill deer, realize that you're actually killing other species when they're more invasive because they're eating all the mast, which means that bunny rabbits are dying. So I haven't, you know, I don't have a, the lobbyists haven't gotten to me.
I would
on
like to
this one.
challenge your bunny
But
rabbits are dying.
Pardon me.
I would
I'm
like-
speaking-
Ma'am,
I would like to challenge that.
wait,
no.
please let him finish, then I'll open it up to comment afterwards.
Yeah. So my point is that we're not killing deer because it's something we necessarily want to do, but we have to make sure that we don't allow them to become invasive and to eat up the mast, to then kill other species and have a negative effect on the entire ecosystem. So this is why we're looking at deer management. We've looked at it for years. It's not just the accident data, which is significant. And it's not just Lyme disease, which is also significant. If you go to the CDC website and you look at Bucks County, you can see a map over the years. The good news is that post-COVID, the number of Lyme disease cases that are reported to the CDC have significantly declined. So that's not necessarily in reaction to what we've done here. I don't know that you can make that correlation, but I would say it is a real issue. Pennsylvania and this area is a hot spot for Lyme disease. I know many people have had it. So these are things that we balance when we make decisions, and we want people to say, hey, we want to ensure the health, safety, and welfare. And I understand that it perhaps is unseemly, that there's perhaps a deer that could die in a field that's close to where you live, but that's kind of the choice of living in this particular area. And I wouldn't be so supportive of the program if I didn't think it made differences. And so while I'm okay with the sense of the board and BOMA's willingness to work with us, and they have been a tremendous partner over the years, I want folks to understand, in 3 months, if people come up to the board saying, hey, what are you doing about the deer that hit my car? What are you doing about X? And then they're filing complaints at the Citizens Traffic Commission. And then we get all these reports. I'm going to say, well, wait a second. We weren't allowed to harvest deer here, or we didn't have enough tags. That's the trade-offs we make. It's not as simple as we don't like deer, or we have some sort of hidden agenda that we've been corrupted by Big Lyme or whoever they are. we make these trade-offs. And so I want folks to understand that, and have some understanding where we're coming from when we make these decisions. So that's my piece.
State your name and whether or not.
Hi,
you're
my name
local.
is Bonnie Radigan. I live in 15 Claire Drive. I would like to challenge everything he just said. He doesn't live here. I've never seen one dead rabbit in my backyard. There are 15 deer there. That's not an overabundance of any word at all. I can see my neighbors through my house. I can see their houses. My dog looks like a deer. She's out there without a leash. A lot of these people don't have fences in their backyard. I do. This person doesn't. These deer do not run in here only. They run out here as well, which is not the hunting grounds. I appreciate BOMA backing down from hunting in here. And I assure you all these animals are very healthy. I've been here for 6 years. I've only seen one deer die. I believe it was because they were fighting. I haven't seen any dead deer along the roads over here except one. I'm really appreciative of BOMA to stop hunting here because as you can see, all these neighbors do not want to watch it. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just
Still have-
guys, if we've agreed, if they've agreed not to do it, can we just honestly, I mean, and I don't want to not, your voice shouldn't be heard, but
Can I have,
this is what we're trying to avoid.
one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please state your name and.
My name is Rob Ottenheimer. I've lived at 1309 Fountain Road since 1989. I'm an original resident there. There would be a road going through there if it weren't for Betsy Eingorn and myself representing Lower Makefield Township on a traffic and transportation task force. There was supposed to be a highway from Bethlehem all the way down, et cetera. So we wouldn't even be talking, and Bonnie wouldn't live where Bonnie lives. We wouldn't be talking about this. The important thing is we don't want to have the same conversation because we were blindsided. My belief is that letters never would have come out from the township had they not received a registered certified letter and email from Dr. Eingorn's son, an attorney, that said, what are you guys doing? Because now the township has all this liability. So even though John, you believe that we should be hunting in this area, it's very small, and I don't want to have this conversation and get all these people together next year because there is no access. Chief Calusi lives in the development. You don't see deer walking down your street, do you? You see them in my backyard though, don't you? Okay, so they're all very well behaved. We train them well, as you guys said earlier. The fox are there, the geese come in sometimes. We get ducks in the spring. There's all kinds of stuff going on. We have rabbits, we have squirrels. It's a really nice place, and we've been shepherding that land, which is township property, since 1989. 2 hunters have shown up over the last number of years, going back 20 years, and said they have permission. We challenged them. They didn't have permission from anyone. So I'll cut this short. I'll stop, but it's very important that you make it so it's a perpetuity no hunt here unless the residents change their minds, because these orange dots that are here are all people that represented themselves on the petition saying no hunt on my property or contiguous to my property. I live where the blue dot is, and the only other access is off of Lindenhurst Road. BOMA's original map where you had the recovery, et cetera, and the township notes going back, and Chief, you were part of this as well, said 3 years ago they illegally hunted. Is Jim here from BOMA?
Jim is not here.
Jim's not here? Okay, because he made mention of the fact that when he became president, he realized they didn't have permission to be in there except for one of our residents supposedly let him in. So it was illegal hunting. You were part of that conversation as well. It's in the township meeting notes, and it was really disgusting to get this letter. So I appreciate what you're doing, backing it out, but I'd like to make sure that you're on record saying you're backing it out for perpetuity unless there becomes a problem. Because I can tell you, we've seen 4 fawns this year. That's it. 4 spotted little deer cruising around doing their thing. And I know you don't want to hear any more, so I'll shut up. I would like to leave this with you. This is what correlates with the petition.
Leave it with our town chief.
Yeah,
The only thing I would just like to respond, just the notice had nothing to do with any correspondence that was received. Township's practice has been to notify people throughout the duration of this.
We had
program.
4 days, 4 days. From the time we
Well,
got the letter.
again, the the timing of your letter went out no different than the timing of any other letter that went out. So again, I'm not disregarding what you're saying. I'm just simply saying that the notice had nothing to do with correspondence that was sent by an attorney.
Well, I'm glad legally that that's the case, because I'm pleased that the township is taking care of letting us know of things. By the way, that distance there was a question about is 70 yards from the narrow point. So if I use the Onyx map, I have the hunting app, 70 yards, so it's not much. And thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Ottenheimer, his wife, live at the same place. I'm probably one of the oldest residents in Yardley Run, so older and wiser, I hope. But I did have a lot to say, and I'm not going to say it because I think most of it's been said. I think that not enough was mentioned though about how it was going to originally be 92 days of hunting back there. And even in the letter that was sent to us a good 4 days before it was to begin, on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. We were told, oh gosh, I just lost my line. Okay. Let me go to the next point and the last point, that according to a meeting, I guess in April 23rd, Lower Makefield Township Deer Management Proposal, it was signed and approved in April 23rd, and we received the notice 4 days before. So whether anything inspired you to do it at that point, I just think it's not much time. For the first time in the 34 years I've lived there, we never got a notice until the one time 4 days before, and it doesn't seem real timely. It just seems like it could have been sent a lot earlier, so we could have gotten together and seen if everyone did want this. And I do notice that I read some minutes from 2021, May 19th, how Ms. Blundy, Mr. Grenier, Mr. Ferguson, we're all talking about how before a property is chosen, residents have a chance to make comments before it's chosen. It's interesting. That would be really appreciated. If you're considering our property in the future, to let us know ahead of time so we can see where the residents stand and what we think. So that's all I have to say. And you're lucky because I had a lot more to say.
That, and I think future years, whoever's chair, whenever we put an agenda together in the spring, when this is considered, we actually list the properties on the agenda. So that way it's part of the public notice. People can see.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe not.
Yeah, again, I'm happy to make any modifications, obviously, in terms of notice. The practice, though, again, has been consistent with the past practice over the course of the past 14 years.
One of those things we always look to see where.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And thank you, BOMA guys, for conceding. Obviously this is a situation where it's, we get what you're trying to do, and I appreciate what you guys do for sure. So it's not, we don't appreciate it. It's just one of those things where it's just time and place.
Thank you for your time, and thank you to the residents for their opinions.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good for the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on.
We're
to the,
moving on.
Next item on the agenda.
Thanks.
If there is a large group of folks that were only interested in that item, you don't have to, I'm not kicking you out, but you don't have to stick around if you don't want to. I can give you a second.
We had a question related to that also,
To BOMA?
to the hunting. Mary.
So, yeah, quickly, because we have a big agenda here.
My name is Mary Shrepko, 32 Maple Vale Drive.
Mhm.
They also hunt behind our house. Okay,
The
so,
township
and,
property.
and I'm sitting here listening to all the stuff that you guys are saying. Back in 2010, same thing happened to us. What happened to you guys? That's why I'm sitting here and I'm listening. I'm like, this is a deja vu. So we weren't told either when it first happened, like 4 days ahead of time. And I actually had one of your guys come up to me when I was pulling weeds, came up to me and say, we're hunting behind your house and we're going to be pulling deer through your property. And I was just like, no, that's not going to happen. So I went to all my neighbors. We did also petition, same thing. We also had NBC News here with us too, about what was going on. Now, I don't understand like how the changes have happened from 2010 to 2023. You're telling everybody it's 50 yards from the property line. Now, I have a letter from the supervisors saying that they changed it to 100 yards from our property line, not 50. Plus through the township, you guys also, well, I know there was totally different people. And I have the letter that the hunt was also shortened from September to the end of November, not the December and January and these Sundays. So I don't know when that started. And then the posting, okay, some years you guys did not put up the signs. We had a call to find out and also ask the township to put the signs up because the signs weren't up there. And not all the signs right now are up along the property of Maple Vale because there are some people, which right now I have some residents in here that I found out this morning, they have no signs that are posting behind their house. Now, most of us do not have fences. You guys have been to our houses because of the flood, so you know the situation. So I don't know where these changes occurred and why. We all know too what we have behind there. We also asked back then, which still hasn't been done, we want data because you don't know, besides the accidents and plus where we are on Maple Vale and Taylorsville, has there been any accidents with deer over there? And plus we've been asking for the data, how many deer has this really impact? Like, is there a number of a population of the deer? And you guys were supposed to come up with stuff. We have never seen anything. All of a sudden, after a couple of years, it got very, very quiet. And as we're seeing the changes. Now, when I left my house, it was dark. You're supposed to be hunting between dawn and dusk, correct? Why are there still guys out there at night? We have seen them leave at night. And there's only supposed to be one hunter behind our house. We have caught 2 of your guys behind our house, more than one truck, okay, being parked on Taylorsville. And where we just dug, okay, where you guys kind of went and cleared along the stream, some of my neighbors went back there last week and are concerned because it's a nice like trail for now the hunters to get back there, but also there's like these clearings now, these circles that were made, which is a question I was going to ask you about, and plus to that stream at the end going into the canal has not been cleaned out. But these things I'm listening that you guys are saying is really not true. And we have called for problems. We have called the township. And I know it was a different township manager. It wasn't you, David, but the other one, the guy before you, we were calling with problems with this. We have sent emails with problems that there's more than one hunter back there. And the response that we would get back, we're going to look into it. So we did the same thing. But we still have to have the hunt because we made the compromise, but the compromise has changed over the years. And look, I can get the petition going again too. We don't want you back there. I mean, we don't want you. And we have asked before, and I'm really happy for you guys, but we had originally 22 acres, but since the new second bridge was put up, there's less acreage. And look, I could tell you, I have a family of hunters. Okay. I know exactly what goes on, but to us, this is not hunting. This is more of slaughtering. Okay. And it's a massacre. It's babies and does, not just bucks. So I'm just going to let you know, I just wanted the question, what happened? Why did these changes occur? We were never notified. So you guys are there longer. We've seen more than one hunter. You guys are staying there late at night too. There's been the hunters, because we see you guys leaving. We see the people leaving. It's dark out. All right. And it's supposed to be 100 yards. That's what was in the letter. And I could bring that in if you want to see it, not 50 yards.
Real quick, as far as the late night, I would imagine if you shot and there was a deer that you hit, you might be tracking late at night. You're not actually.
That is true.
We
but
see
it's
them
30
leaving with
minutes
nothing.
Well, I mean, you could track and still not come out with a deer. I mean, you could track a blood.
Look, we know what's back there and we do see them.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many, do you have a data of how many you've taken out from that area?
I'm sure we could possibly come up with it because we collect that data annually.
Yeah.
Well, we've been asking.
The township.
Yeah, I think they said about 40 in Lower Makefield last year.
Well, and.
But on that track, Maple Vale track, between Maple Vale and Taylorsville.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I think everyone
No.
would love to, I ask questions about data. Ask questions about data. I would love to see data by parcel
So
moving.
we have that and that gets submitted, a biweekly report to the township.
So the other thing I would ask, and I know she's speaking to someone, but one, I would be very curious to see when those interactions occurred, if they were in the last few years recently, or if they were back in 2010. So we have an understanding of when there may have been some, let's say, bad actors. And if that's been addressed and corrected, we want to know that.
Unfortunately, we're not the only ones who go in there. You know, there
There may be other-
encroachers.
Right.
I don't know. This doesn't sound like something that one of our people would do. I can't speak
So,
to it.
What
other
happens
than
if
if we
you
don't
catch
know what it-
someone doing something that they're not supposed to? What is?
There's a
something that you-
disciplinary process and depending on the severity, they either get disciplined, they could go on probation, they could get just completely booted out of the program.
Okay, and the other thing I would say to anybody is if you have an issue with anyone, Hunt Boma or some other hunter going in there, and you contact the township manager, you contact somebody else on staff and they're not responding to you, we have 5 board members that all have emails. Email all of us.
Okay.
We don't miss those, right? We will follow up. That's, I can say, I think I can speak for everyone on that one.
Okay.
And, you know,
Just to speak towards posting as well, this is the first year we've done it ourselves. Usually that's a township employee who does the post.
so there are improvements to process and procedure. It sounds like in years past, it hasn't been much like.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if there are problems this year, we haven't done it in the past, so we're, we might not have followed exactly what they've done. We try to put them up where we've seen posters in the past and.
I think over posting there's no such thing as over posting, in my opinion. As someone,
Something we can resolve for sure.
as someone who grew up in rural Maine where there's hunting everywhere and I'm a field biologist to boot, so I'm in the woods doing my job during hunting season. So I am keenly aware of the concerns because I have to cover my own backside all the time when I'm doing my job. I understand the concerns. I also understand what it means to have an overpopulation of deer and what that does to the environment. But I think the township generally working with BOMA and others, I know we have an ordinance. I don't know if the 100 yards is in that ordinance. I don't believe it is. Yeah, so we have an ordinance. Other boards may have done things differently. Future boards may do things differently. There may be ordinance changes if we need to ensure process, and that's something I think we should look into to make sure that notifications to residents, nearby residents, is codified to make sure nobody can get out of that. I think these are my opinions here. I think coming up with a more standardized approach to posting of land, so that there is no question about what's posted and how it's posted. Maybe there's a standard posting. We saw the sign. Maybe we can improve upon that. All that stuff that we are property owners as the board, as the township. So we just it's our property. We manage it. We want to make sure that I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And it's for protection of the township. It's for protection of the hunters in terms of, so we all know, we're all singing from the same sheet music. And it's for the protection of the residents who live nearby. So they know there's some reliability there, right? It's like everything else. You want to know how things are supposed to happen, then you can check against it. Make sure they are happening. So I think we should evaluate the process to make sure, see if there's anything missing. And if there's anything missing, we fix it with feedback from everybody involved. And then just like anything.
Just real quick, the numbers that you submitted to the township, I'm assuming Park and Ride 2 would be that Maple Vale area.
Correct.
So it's about 40 deer total, and then it looks like 4, which would represent about 10%. of the 40 came from the park and ride. So that's the neighborhood that you're
Last year,
speaking of.
that's what you had?
From September 7 to February 4th.
Yeah, that's
September 17th.
that's
Yep.
stated that they had provided at the end of
Last year.
at the beginning of this year relative to the end of
Okay.
last
And
year.
they enter from where, basically the guide rail, they enter that property from the guide rail where,
Correct.
okay.
It's one vehicle and I don't believe
I saw a hunter out there last year with his
so there's
compound.
no, we can have two hunters, but one vehicle, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't, as far as the hunter's limit, I'm not sure on that, but,
I know there's limited to one vehicle. They didn't want two.
Well, to point about
look
process and
into it.
guidance, I think
Yes.
we need to clarify between the township and BOMA that number. And
Yes,
make
sir.
sure it's clear so that if people see two and they
No,
report it,
I
that we
agree.
can make you aware and we can address it. That way, there's no question. If it's 101, then we're 101. If it's 1 and 2, then it's 1 and 2, and then everybody knows, and that's how it goes. But we just need to have.
Yeah, that's fine. What's the basis for the one? I don't know what the one hunter. one
Parking is
vehicle.
restricted to across the street, so they didn't want two in there to block, access.
Yeah, but limiting the number of occupants in a vehicle, that was something that.
No, on the property, I thought it was a two-person. I'd have to look into our numbers, but I thought it was two people, one vehicle we
And-
could have
and-
in there.
I'll just say from a safety perspective, the safety, so there's different ways of looking at it. Safety of the hunter or anyone going into the field, you typically want two, right? So they can look out for each other, but you don't want them covering a lot of space.
Yeah,
right?
it's not a large parcel, but it can easily handle two.
So, and so we need to evaluate that.
Sure.
I think everyone's hearing me, but there's room for improvement across the board is what I'm getting at, and we got to do that. So, yes, ma'am.
I know you want to be done with these public comments, but I would like to put some words on the record, if that's okay with you. Thank you. My name is Susie Taylor. I'm a Lower Makefield resident, resident of Yardley Run for 20 years. I'd like to first take the opportunity to thank the Board of Supervisors for your service to our community. And thank you, those of you who read the email that I sent last night with attachment of the map. I'm not here to debate the topic of hunting or berate those who engage in the sport. In fact, I recognize that hunting is a cost-effective strategy to control the deer population. However, I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it, or be any part of it. And I do oppose the BOMA proposal to hunt on the very narrow tract of land that borders several neighborhoods off of Lindenhurst Road, including the Yardley Run development. I think what I'm going to say next is important for me to put on the record, because what I've heard, some of the gist is that, you think that we're just about, the deer. But the reality is, for many of us, there's a level of fear, anxiety, and sadness that we felt that came along with the letter and the notification that there would be hunting in our backyards. I know for me personally and my family, that was the case. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the fear, the anxiety, and the sadness. The fear is based on the reality that accidents do happen. And as you may know, there is no shoulder on the stretch of Twining Road where the Sterling Farm property is. So passing through the woods is the safest and fastest option for kids traveling between Yardley Run development and the neighborhoods on the other side of the woods, such as Kirkwood, the Reserve at Newtown, and Hill Haven. I know some folks might argue that there might be these warning signs, and I'm glad that you guys are realizing that there's a great deficit in that, because I looked for them today and I didn't find them. But regardless of that, the reality is, if any of you have kids or have had interaction with children these days, they don't look forward because they're looking down at their phones. So they wouldn't see any of those signs anyway. I am fearful that on such a narrow strip of land, it's more likely that accidents will happen. My anxiety has to do with the realization that it would have been very likely over the course of the 85-day hunt that while relaxing on my couch in the sanctity of my home, looking out my window, I would see an injured deer stumble onto my property with an arrow sticking out of its body, clearly suffering in an agony. I don't know what else to say other than witnessing this from the confines of my home is absolutely unimaginable to me. While I know some of you may not be able or even care to understand, to me and my family, witnessing such suffering and torture caused by an intentional human act would be traumatic and something I would expect my children to have a very difficult time forgetting. As a parent, I expect my home to be a safe place where I can protect my children from witnessing such profound trauma. My sadness comes from knowing how the kids from the immediate area regularly use that open space and realizing it would no longer be available to them. During the time between when the soccer season ends and the baseball season begins, the open space becomes a place where kids gather and meet up to explore and play after school and on weekends. As a parent, one of the great things about that space is because the land is so narrow, once the leaves fall, you can see through to the other side. In fact, I would tell my kids to throw on their neon LMT soccer jerseys over their winter jackets because I knew I would always be able to quickly spot them in the woods when they went out to explore. From a parent's perspective, once the leaves fall, that space transforms from the woods to an open playground. Now that my kids are a bit older, I have gotten familiar with the younger generation who plays out there. In fact, I also often bring them hot chocolate on those cold days so that I have an excuse to check out what they're discovering. Sometimes their discovery is some sort of tunnel an animal made, and sometimes it's an old artifact or piece of machinery from the days when the land used to be a peach orchard. There have been many times when the Boy Scouts, equipped with black trash bags and heavy gloves, will pick up litter that may have been dumped or collected along the banks of the small stream that runs through that property. I love this part about living in Lower Makefield. How blessed we are to live in a community where kids can unplug from their devices, go outside their front door, and be exposed to the beauty and mystery of nature. It makes me terribly sad to think the kids wouldn't have the opportunity to explore and do any of this for such an extended period of time, because what was proposed was 23 weeks, if I had counted correctly.
Okay.
When I was thinking, final comment, when I was thinking about how I wanted to spend my time this evening, the words, "just because you can doesn't mean you should," kept popping into my mind. As elected officials, you are charged with using your judgment to make decisions based on what is best for the residents you serve. I'm glad to know and realize that you have listened to us and that you realize and appreciate how having approved this property to hunt would have impacted not just the adults here, but the children. So thank you. And I really appreciate your thoughtfulness really about the signs. Because like I said, I back up right to that space and I walked my dogs along it and there were no signs. So even if you're looking for them, they're not there. And perhaps there can be another discussion about how you can communicate it with a generation of the younger kids. They're not looking for signs. So I don't know, there's an app or something else or through the school, but some way you can communicate that with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I would say we move on to the next item on our agenda. Bowman,
Gentlemen, thank you
for coming.
again.
And
Thank you,
everyone-
guys.
Thank you very much.
Everyone that's come out to speak tonight, we appreciate your comments, your feedback, and more to come.
There was no motion. It was done by consensus. There was no motion required. Boma agreed on the record in the minutes to not hunt that parcel. No, that was not done tonight, as it was indicated earlier. This is under review all the time. So, all right. Okay, it doesn't mean they're ever going to resume. I don't want to suggest that either, but I think that's for tonight. Okay. Yes.
Correct, yes.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. And
Well-
as the board and Mr. Kratzer have indicated, there will be review and notification process will be improved. So that's something that's going to be ongoing. Okay.
100%.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the next item, engineers report. Item A is consider pay application number 4 for the Woodside Road Multi-Use Trail Project in the amount of $112,231.07. I believe our township engineer is joining us via Zoom this evening.
I'm
here. Is that Paul?
Yep, Paul, yep.
Paul, can you address this item, please?
Correct. So we're asking for release. This is payment application number 4 for work completed thus far on the trail. This catches up the contractor on payment due for work completed.
All right, so is that it, Paul? From your end?
Correct.
Yeah, I know. So I'll entertain a motion first. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the pay application on the engineer's report?
Would it be appropriate to make a motion to discuss?
Well, ultimately, we'll discuss it.
The motion is to pay, but as it's worded, but doesn't mean you have to agree with, even to make the motion doesn't mean you're.
Motion maker doesn't have to.
No, you're just moving it so it can be discussed.
I will go on the record that I am not. I am making the motion just for discussion.
Okay.
So moved.
I will second just for the basis of discussion.
I'll say up front, I think the whole board has issues, concerns with this particular pay application because of current state of the bike path, but Mr. Kratzer, could you summarize where we're at in terms of?
Yeah, and Paul, you might be best suited to talk a little bit about some of the ongoing conversations with the contractor, some of the punch list items. Obviously, you're the folks that reviewed the payment application and are making the recommendation, so you should probably speak to that.
Paul, before you do that, just to set up for people watching at home wondering why we're doing it this way or why we have concerns. The Woodside Road bike path was constructed. There are parts of it that are failing. I'll say it that way. I think we've reviewed it. In our last meeting, we may have shown some pictures, but there's several sections of the currently constructed Woodside Road bike path that have pavement has failed. I think there's some issues with seating. There's some issues, obviously, the utility poles being moved. There've been some issues around some of the stormwater inlets there, and I think some of what I would refer to as the road and sediment control best management practices, their installation and current upkeep. So there are several issues surrounding the current state of the project and how the fixes are being addressed that haven't been addressed yet. That I think it's pretty safe to say that all of us on the board have reservations about moving forward with the pay application, given that there are several items outstanding. So I want to understand, I think we all want to understand why we would be moving forward with this pay application if there are still outstanding issues. There's probably some money in escrow to fix things, but is that enough? And why are we moving forward with this number of $12,000? I don't know if I summarized that well enough, but I think that's my main concern is, do we have to move forward with this until we can get more work done and make some improvements that clearly need to be made in the field? So anyone else want to?
No, that's
Paul. Perfect. Okay. So Paul, with that, can you discuss this, please?
Sure. So we agree with the concerns of the board. Members of my office met with the contractor and we did a site walk together. We've identified the items you've mentioned that are to be completed. So we have a new punch list and a new plan that we're working with the contractor. This is not final payment. There is still approximately $55,000 left in the contract. So this will not pay off the contract. We recognize the items as well that need to be completed. The majority of this payout, approximately $98,000, is for the asphalt that was installed. And we agree that these items that we're seeking payment are complete. Again, there are areas of erosion, namely near the basin, that the contractor is giving us information to remedy the erosion. There are yet to complete. There's silt sock remaining on site that they'll be removing soon. The areas that need vegetation, they've been known to seed and to install silt sock for just those areas, fresh silt sock. But a majority of the silt sock that's along the project can be removed as is no longer needed and is in disrepair. So we agree with those comments, and the items for payment are for items that have been fairly completed by the contractor. I believe they have not been paid since March, roughly, of this year. So this catches them up on 3 applications that they've sent to us.
I guess, Dave, one of my follow-up questions, for those areas that are, what I would say are failed, I'm sorry if you can't hear me, sir, apologize. For those areas that may be seen as failing or having issues where, you know, along the basin where pavement has fallen off and there has been some sloughing of soils, and some of the inlets, there's the one inlet near the pole that I can remember just down the hill from there. When we look at that and we look at whether or not we're paying a contractor, can we make a determination whether it's a contractor not doing what they were supposed to do? If it was a design deficiency, do we know that yet to assign
responsibility? I don't know that we definitively know that. Again, my understanding is that the township engineer has inspected the work that he's recommending payment for. So I would assume that the items that are reflected in this pay application are not items of concern. I would expect that there's going to be some ongoing conversations regarding, you know, from the contractor's perspective, they're going to turn into, I would imagine, change orders. And then so once those change orders materialize, at that point, I think that discussion regarding, you know, is this a design deficiency? Is this required because there was a deviation from standard? Those kinds of conversations are going to have to take place. And I've been clear with RVE on that issue as well, that you know, that our project savings don't necessarily become, you know, available for addressing some of these other issues.
And Paul, you threw out the number 98,000. Is there another number other than that 112 that is, I don't know how I'm going to say this, but that's more just, is 98,000 in your mind more justifiable than 112? I'm probably not saying that the right way, but can we
Maybe more representative.
of the work completed that is correct? Yeah.
Sorry, Dan, it's a little hard to hear you, but
I'm sorry. Yeah. So essentially what I'm asking, is there another number that would be more, that is less questionable, I guess is the way I'll say it, that is more representative of the work that was completed correctly, that has been successful, that does not need additional work?
So again, the 98,000 was my summary of the quantity item for the completed asphalt paving. So as I've walked the trail, for majority of it, the trail is intact, and I do agree with these payout items. I also agree that there are items to be completed and addressed. So I do support this payment, and at the same time need the punch list items to be addressed. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I'll ask it another way. What's the $14,000 difference between the 98 and the 112? What's it,
Sure.
what falls in that 14?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Okay, there you go. So let's see.
Paul, you have it or you want me to, I have your payout.
I have it in front of me. If it's up, yeah, there's another $5,700 for crosswalk striping, relocating traffic signs and mailboxes. They've done 5. That's 2,000. There's $550 for the stop bars, and then the other.
Topsoil seeding and straw mulch.
Correct. That's $7,600. So, and we are also not paying out the retainer, 2% retainage. So that's been subtracted, and that we end up with 112. 231 does not include a retainer amount that's also being withheld.
258.
So we left over at, let's, if we move forward to 112, there's still 50 some odd $1,000 left.
Yeah, 54,990.17 is remaining. That would be the work not being recommended for payment plus the retainage, yes.
Does township staff have a recommendation on this one?
I mean, again, we defer to our professional engineers that are inspecting the work. Derek, I don't know if you have any anything to add?
Paul, I have a quick question for you. So the punch list items that you identified remaining on the track, are these punch list items rendering the full trail usable or unusable?
So the punch list items are to address the remaining contract items. We still need to relocate the utility poles, and we still need to complete the crossing at Taylorsville. So
Do the
full
remaining
trail
punch
will
list?
not meet- I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no, do the remaining punch list items, do they pose as health and safety concerns for residents that are trying to use the bike path?
So one of the items that we want to, that's still to be added, we're going to place a barrier at the end of the trail near Taylorsville to help warn anyone that's on the trail that shouldn't be. Currently there's a sign, at least there was, the contractor sent a picture. They moved the sign to block the one end of the trail kind of further west on Woodside. And again, at the east side near Taylorsville, we need to put a barrier. So there are some safety items that are to be completed that are part of the punch list.
And then do you have a timeline or a time frame on when those utility poles are going to be removed? And additionally, is there going to be a change order to resurface the areas where the utility poles were?
Great question. So timeline, for the utility poles, we are in the process of meeting the utilities comment that they would like them all in one line. When we met with them out in the field, there was talk of, moving one a certain distance and others. So to keep it all in line and to make it as simple and user-friendly for the utility, we're currently in that process, and that's a review of the right-of-way and the distance and clearances. So we're currently in the process of, can we streamline this? Can we get the clearances we need for the poles? And then furthermore, to do that, is there any other easements required that we would have to obviously notify the township and come up with a game plan? So that's all in the process of completing that design for the utilities in terms of the pole removal. In terms of the path, that there may be areas of the path that will have to change as a result of to be in coordination with the utility poles to shift the path, to have the clearances we need and to make things work. So that's all in the process and a possibility.
And just to follow up to that, can you give me the mindset of the during design stage, what the advantage of was to installing the bike path with the utility poles in the middle of it? What the advantage was from a process standpoint to do it that way? Was there an advantage doing it that way, or were we kind of getting ahead of ourselves?
Good point. I think in hindsight, it appears that the poles should have been moved first.
Okay. Thank you.
But I don't know that that necessarily applies to the pay application for the contractor, but it's a good question from a process perspective. If we can't open the trail safely, and there's just because the contractor bought a lot of stuff, installed a lot of stuff, but it's not something that we can actually open. There's just done. I don't know. It's tough for me personally to say.
And sorry, Dan, I can't hear.
Can't hear
what you're saying.
pretty close. I really got to swallow the microphone again. No, for me personally, if we can't open the trail, then it doesn't seem like it's done from a contractor perspective to the point that we can pay them for something. That's my struggle. I understand that they've done work, but it's not work that we can use. So
And if I could just add a quick comment to that. So, and just to clarify what I was saying, so part of the trail can be used. Part of the trail is set to be closed, but I'll just want to make that one point.
I guess my other question, because we all have these hesitations, for lack of a better term, is there any legal obligation that we have to do this, that we have to pay them now?
Well, I'd have to check the MPC on that, but there are some timeframes, depending on what submissions are. I think it's 45 days if I'm not, I don't even know when this was submitted, specifically.
These specific payment requests from
Yeah.
Paul, do you have that information?
Payment requests we submitted on September 13th, 2023. So last week.
No, not when we received it, when the contractor submitted it to RVE for review for payment.
I'd have to look into that again. I know. I think the date of March was the last time they were paid. So let me see.
Yeah, I mean, I could just speak to my conversations with RVE. I've been pushing off these payment applications till we get some resolution on some of these issues. You can push off the payment application. Just be aware that you may have a claim from the contractor for untimely payment.
Yeah.
And because some of these issues likely are not as a result of contractor performance, they're probably a result of design deficiencies.
then-
And again, I can't say that definitively at this point, but just be mindful that there's other contributing factors other than contractor performance that's leading to what the state that we find ourselves in.
And just to chime in really quick, it looks like one of their payment applications was May 8th of 2023. I think that was the earliest of the three.
Yeah,
recent
I've been telling them we need resolution. So the contractor has not been paid for some time on the work. Yeah.
Yeah, because just so folks know what we have documentation from RVE that is a payment certificate on RVE's letterhead. We don't have the original invoices from the contractor with dates. That's why we're asking the question, so we know what our obligations may be.
Oh, has the contractor come to you with any type of issues with design that is preventing them from getting, from completing the project or from getting the project done because of the way it was designed or the way that it was planned out as far as, specifically the telephone poles? Have they come to you and said, because I'm also wondering whether or not the contractor would have claim against the engineering firm that came up with the design that told them to pave a bike path with telephone poles in the middle of it. Okay.
So if I understand your question, so I think, the contractor has voiced to us that some of the items yet to be completed are pending pricing. And they've obviously voiced their request to get payment. So does that answer your question?
No. I was just wondering if the contractors had, I guess, a layman to me would say, why would you pave a bike path with telephone poles in the middle of it? Did the contractor voice that concern to you during construction? knowing that at this point, we're at a point where the township is hesitant to make payments where there's not necessarily contractor flaws. There may be some of that, but there's actually some design flaws as well. Have they come to you at all and said, hey, it may be design that's prohibiting us from getting paid?
Like, for example, Paul, let me, a quick question, like, for example, did they make any field change requests or issue any RFIs during the construction process that would say, hey, we've identified XYZ issue. We think it should be addressed before moving forward with it? Or they just move forward with whatever was on the paper, built it to spec and says, hey, well, you guys do with it what you want?
Yeah, so to my understanding, for the project, I don't have the full background, unfortunately, but I can follow up and answer any questions tomorrow. But my understanding that I do know that there were items where the contractor had questions. We supplied answers. So there has been dialogue and questions along the way. Now, in terms of the utility poles, at this time, I don't know whose call that was and the direction to proceed. I'm not aware. I wasn't part of that.
We can.
So,
You would want a motion to table and there's no discussion. If we have a motion to table, if everybody agrees, then that's what would happen.
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to table this and consider it at a later time on the condition that we receive a comprehensive updated plan and timeline for remediation of items and affirmation as to when the utility will fix the poles and prior to that. And we understand that this is certainly not ideal, right? From the perspective of the contractor, but so I need a second.
You need a second.
Oh, I'll second that.
All right, so we can.
And there's no discussion on the
No
motion.
discussion, yeah, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0 to table till future notice.
And with the proviso,
Everything that Supervisor Lewis said.
yeah.
I won't try to reiterate everything, but we need to dig deeper into this one. All right,
Dave's got it.
anything else on the engineer's report?
Paul, any other items on your engineer's report? I know they have your full report. Any other items of note that you want to make mention of?
Not at this time. We've submitted our report, and if there's any questions, feel free to let us know. And I guess we can, if there's anything under the manager's report, we can discuss those items too.
Yeah, there may be some items in the updates that
The only engineer's report item I think I would ask for an update on be the tennis and pickleball courts.
Yeah, any additional response from the contractor at this point as it relates to our deficient work notice that we submitted on the pickleball courts?
So I will have to look into that and see what the status is.
And nothing that I'm aware of.
Prior township engineer, right? Or is that correct?
Yeah, it was.
The original design was.
Yes. Yeah.
The plan set was issued by RV.
Yep.
All right, not moving on from the engineer's report, we're on the manager's report.
Okay, so
First item is the flood response update.
yep, so just a couple updates for the board and for the benefit of the public. So the restoration work at 18 and 20 Mapleville has largely been completed, as well as a repair to the bank of the Delaware Canal. Derek, is there just some planting items, I guess, that remain at this point? Is that correct? Okay, so some of the landscape restoration in those two backyards remains to be completed, but again, the work is largely completed at this point. No update from FEMA regarding any determination regarding public or individual assistance. Regarding the sort of vegetation management along the unnamed tributary that's been a topic of conversation. The township continues to clear that out in order to try to gain access to the stream. Ultimately, that's necessary for evaluating sort of the need for sediment removal within the stream channel and so forth. At your last meeting, the board did authorize the engagement of land studies, an environmental consulting firm based in Lidditz, to perform a conditions assessment along the entire stretch of that same unnamed tributary, to look for opportunities to address upstream conditions. As part of the scope of work, land studies and the township will be holding a community listening / information gathering session. We have been able to schedule that. So that's scheduled for October the 11th at 6:30 at the Lower Makefield Township Community Center on Oxford Valley Road. And we'll make sure to provide notice both on the website via our social media channels and then also to the listserv that we maintain internally. But again, that's October the 11th at 6:30 at the Lower Makefield Township Community Center.
Do we have the ability to have a virtual meeting as well at the community center?
I have to look into the capacity to do that there, but I think we can try to do that. Land studies in talking with them, we did have our sort of project kickoff meeting from a scheduling standpoint. They're contemplating that their work would be done probably November, December of 2023. And again, there would be a host of recommendations likely coming out of that to sort of move into next year. We do have a pre-application meeting scheduled with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That's scheduled for October the 12th to discuss permitting requirements and process for additional sediment removal from that same unnamed tributary. And so land studies, RV is coordinating that. Land studies will be here on the 11th. They'll also be here on the 12th. So they'll be participating in that session as well.
Any specific stretch of stream, reach of stream, or is it the whole, looking at what we'd have to do for the whole thing?
It's on those two parcels of township-owned land that James had previously requested. So I guess we referred to that as Prospect Farm, and then the area on the east side of Taylorsville Road, adjacent to the park and ride. Yep. And then township engineers finalizing design for the previously contemplated phase 2 Maplevale. They're looking at the scope of work, trying to determine sufficiency and see if there's opportunities for expansion of that scope of work. Paul, I don't know on those last two items, both the pre-application meeting that you're coordinating and the Maplevale Phase 2, whether you have any additional update or information that you want to share with the board or members of the public.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so for the stream clean out, Phase 2 gravel ball removal, we've been in constant contact with DEP, and their recommendation was to have a pre-application meeting, so that's been set up. We are trying to avoid a full Army Corps of Engineers approval in terms of limiting time required for permitting. So we want to determine what's allowable and permissible to avoid a full Army Corps approval. They will be involved regardless. So DEP stressed on us to have a pre-application meeting, which you mentioned is set for October 12th. We are also in coordination with one of the reviewers and have been discussing requirements. This way we have a good handle on the design before stepping into the meeting. So we're doing everything we can to push that along and get that stage complete. October 12th was the soonest they had. September was booked almost immediately, so they pushed us into October. So that's the update for that project. In terms of the phase.
Paul, can I talk to you about that one real quick?
Sure.
So I think I heard Ms. Trepko, I think you had made mention of the stream hadn't been cleaned out yet. So the reason for that is partially because of this meeting that's going on. And what Paul's referring to is we're hoping to be able to get a general permit. I think it's a GP3 is what it's called, so that we can clean out stretch of stream. However, there are conditions with that permit that limit you to certain linear footage across the entire length of the stream before you have to go to what they call a joint permit application or an individual permit that includes an Army Corps review. General permits are maybe a two-month review. Sometimes you can expedite. Individual permits can be 6 months plus if you have to do that. So that's why we're trying to not do that. That's why they're having that meeting. So I just want for context to understand why that process is what it is.
Appreciate the explanation. Thank you. Yeah, so we're doing everything that we can do, and we're just trying to do what can be done fast. So not that we're trying to do anything that's not allowable or not permitted, but we understand the urgency and we want to get more capacity in the streams. So that's the best route to see what can be done fast.
Eric, just on the sort of the clearing of vegetation and so forth, I don't know if you want to provide any, I sort of just mentioned that we continue that work, but if you want to provide additional sort of context on what we've done and what we have remaining to be done.
Yeah, so no problem. So as of probably last Wednesday when we did the last update, honestly, the crews were only in there for about a half a day on Thursday. Friday, the crew had equipment failures with the boom tractor and just couldn't get in there Friday. Monday was a rain day and Tuesday was too wet. And we were short manpower today. So honestly, they were only in there one day in the last week of duration. They did get the backhoe in there on that Thursday of last week, removed a couple stumps and logs from the stream channel that they were able to access. But their goal is now to start boom mowing the vegetative banks of the stream. So again, uncover more vegetative blockages or wooded blockages, no sediment removal. So that's their ongoing status.
Another question. We didn't say anything about any response or lack of response from DCNR on pipe issues.
Yeah, so no response from DCNR at this point. So I will follow up and see where that stands again.
I think at this point we should probably look at alternative paths.
Mhm.
We know there's another older pipe nearby that may also require replacement at some point soon.
Yep.
That may be an opportunity to upsize when replacing to try and address the issue without having to get DCNR sign off on a second pipe, but still have the same.
Yeah. Derek and I spoke about that and the replacement of that other existing pipe. And as you said, upsizing it. I imagine we're gonna, to the extent that we're upsizing diameter, they're still gonna want some information in terms of downstream impact to the canal, all that stuff. So I don't know that we're gonna that path is going to avoid some of the H&H study sort of discussions. And again, we're hopeful that they'll respond to us so that we can have some ability to understand where the target is, because at this point it's it's somewhat of a moving target.
And to your point, because they haven't provided us any guidance about what studies they may want or need, it may be, I don't know, maybe worthwhile to just do the design, submit an application and prove that it's good and see what we get.
Yeah, I mean, we could take that approach. Yep.
I'm thinking out loud.
No, that makes sense.
Let's not wait for them to tell us something because we may never hear it. So that may be something that we look at pretty soon. The other thing that we didn't mention is Senator Saniciero had his annual PennDOT drive around Bucks County, which included Bucks County's transportation folks.
Yep.
Representative Warren was also there. He's doing another one separately, but he also came. And I believe the only location in Lower Mayfield they came to was the stream off Taylorsville to see exactly what happened. So I walked down to see him. Mr. Kratzer was there. Derek was there. Mr. Majewski was there. And I won't say we laid into him, but we gave him the whole story and said, hey, we got to do something. And we talked about different options in terms of, I don't want to call them fixes, but quick things we could do quickly to procure materials that they may have, things that we could do long-term working with them. we even brought up the concept, I think I mentioned last time, about using a sidewalk as a means to have stormwater management on Taylorsville because it's a state road. So we were there for a while, giving them a lot of information, asking for a lot. They made I don't think they made any true commitments other than to work with us moving forward, but we have FaceTime with all of them and have been following up. So we're trying to push PennDOT to be an active partner in this, as I think a big part of the impervious area in this watershed are PennDOT roads, Taylorsville and Dolington, that were built a long time ago and have an impact on our stormwater management, not to mention 295. Don't want to leave that one out. So we're pushing them to play a more active role in what we do. And if we put in for some approval, that we expect them to not sit on it and work together on things. I think the other thing that we should probably discuss is a lot of the work we've done to the stream, vegetation wise, tree that came down recently across Taylorsville. Some of you may have seen that a week or so ago. That's all in PennDOT right away that the township has addressed. PennDOT didn't address it. So there may, probably want to look at whether or not we submit a bill to PennDOT or whoever, because we spent a lot of money addressing these items, and many of them are in PennDOT right away, and we're taking care of it. So we got to see how we can do that, and again, not sit on it. That's my 2 cents. And then go from there. I don't know if I left anything out from that meeting, but
I was gonna say, we should probably thank Derek and the team. They fixed that tree within like an hour.
yes. So
Yeah, so
everybody, the police department, code enforcement, public works, everybody, I walked down.
watched it.
Yeah, everyone, the tree company, I forget which one it was, but everyone was there very quickly directing traffic. For those that missed it, I think it was there's a tree that fell near the off-ramp from 295 to Taylorsville heading south that crossed the lane of traffic. That obviously is not a safe situation in that area, but I think township staff responded very, very quickly. I know most people here know I live pretty close to that. My wife was coming home from school and said, "Hey, what the heck's going on here?" So I walked down and they were already, she drove by not long after it fell, and we already had a lot of staff there. So thankfully, nobody was injured, because that could have been bad in and of itself. But I think the response was very quick. So thank you, Chief, to your staff, and Derek, to your staff, and everyone else. Dave, did you have anything else?
Yeah, the only other thing of note is we did get an updated schedule from RV yesterday that was posted today for those that are interested in that sort of Gantt schedule that previously was provided. We removed the lines from it, so it's hopefully a little bit more readable than what the document was prior. So,
any other board members have any questions? I'm assuming we have some public comment questions on the Maple Vale flooding issue. If you have public comment, please come up. Usual deal, state your name and whether or not you're a resident.
Greg Luzecki, 18 Maple Vale Drive, Lower Makefield Township resident. Thanks for the briefing. You may have answered some questions. I'm not sure.
If
late for you.
it is getting late, and and I apologize, I'm my cold, but feel free to ask them again. We're happy to address this.
First off, I'd like to thank you guys and the township for the work that was done to get our land back to looking like some form of a backyard. So appreciate that. A lot of good work. So you don't get a second pipe, right? We don't get a second pipe. So you offered a possible alternative. Why wasn't that brought up 6 weeks ago? And why hasn't somebody been acting on that as not just an alternate plan, but an additional plan? Okay, I'd like to know why that's not happening. So here's kind of where I'm going, right? A lot of good work, right? You guys know the concern. From my perspective, with the work that's been done so far today, I am barely a little bit better. Actually, I'm not really better than where I was in July, okay? Because when I throw into account the loss that we had to take, that I'm never getting back, we're still behind, all right? You may have done some work in cleaning out streams and that kind of stuff. That's all very good. My question relative to that is, do you guys have a maintenance plan for that? And if you do, is it documented? I'd like to see it, because you'll clean it out now and it'll be better to some degree. To what degree, I don't know yet, because I still think we need that additional top level overview of the whole water channel problem through the township that ends up at us, not just one stream, right? So I think, and my wife alluded to this last 2 weeks ago, whatever, right? You clean it out now, somebody's got to maintain it. Somebody's got to be conscious to look at it and be maintaining it. So do you have that maintenance plan, and is it been assigned to somebody to worry about moving forward? And then my question from there is, in terms of the how are you going to fix the problem? Because I don't think you did yet, right? I don't think you did. Maybe you think you've helped it. You've helped it a little, but I still think we have a water runoff problem that until you address that, we're still sitting vulnerable. And I don't want to replace a fleet of cars again. I don't need my floors redone, all that stuff. I don't want to do that again. So I'm a little bit worried when I did hear, when I hear things like long-term solution, those words bother me. We don't have long-term. And you're already saying words like, well, when it goes into next year. Well, that's not action, in my opinion. That's inappropriate. No, it's not. That's not a bad word. It's inadequate action, in my opinion, for what we're talking about, right? It's not just property. People's lives can be at stake. Because I know if we were home, we would have been at those storm drains. So again, I want to make sure the urgency is there. I would like to see your schedule with what you think you have. I'm going to suggest your schedule needs to be moved in a lot to the left, not right. And if these guys are going to delay meetings, then somebody's got to sit on them. That's what we do. That's how you get stuff done, like it or not. You can't always be polite. We have a real problem and we got to get it done fast. So what's the update really with getting it fixed?
Yeah. Multi-pronged approach. The immediate phase is they're working on, what, next meeting probably? We'll have or I would hope, the updated design for phase 2, as we're calling it.
Yeah, yes. Paul, can you advise as to where you're at? When we're going to see a revised design?
Yeah, so our goal is, and first let me just say that I understand the urgency and I agree and I recognize the problem. So with that, with this phase 2 design, we've expanded the scope, listening to the issues and trying to think of what makes the most sense to try and prevent flooding from, where we are in the project is Highland and Taylorsville. So we're taking all the concerns, listening and incorporating them. So with that, our goal is to have a plan by the next meeting, and we will share it with the township and potentially up to the township, but share with the residents, and any input, we're open to it. Again, we're looking at it from what we think is practical and will help as soon as possible.
Paul, if I can jump in.
Sure.
Our next meeting, I think we already said October 4th.
Yeah.
So by the next meeting, we should see a plan for Mapleville 2 to review. If there's anything earlier, we can look at that as one, maybe part of our flood update meetings that we have. And then a week after that, is it the 11th or 12th? That
11th is the first meeting.
So next construction item will be this project that we're talking about. The next immediate in the ground item would be the work that's closer to Highland and that culvert and whatnot off of Taylorsville.
The 11th is the meeting at the community center.
Right. And then when we talk about the big picture and all that stuff, that's the meeting with the land studies company, looking at the whole watershed, big picture items, looking at different projects that could go on to address this throughout the watershed, getting feedback from everyone, from the residents. That's bigger picture, long-term stuff. But immediate phase is what we'll call phase 2. And then to your point, this replacement of the pipe is probably something, I won't say probably, is something we should move on if that's the will of the board and that's the recommendation of staff and the engineer of the existing older pipe that's closer to between 18 and 16. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. 1816 Mapleville. I would say we should probably look at that sooner rather than later to see what we might be able to actually execute in a timely manner that could work and push those buttons with DCNR and DEP. Is there any reason not to do that?
No.
Other than keeping our fingers crossed that we get a second pipe, but we probably need to replace that pipe anyway, so just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's, yep, makes sense.
There's that, so I'm pushing for you here. The stream clearing, that's gonna be, that can happen fast if we can get the permit fast, right? So thank you for bringing that up. So the maintenance plan, I think personally, I think there's two pieces to that. One, basic maintenance plan that of that stream that our Public Works Department handles, similar to what they've done. But maintaining the stream, depending on what's being done, may require permits. So we have to do that on whatever, every 2 years, whatever, to get in there and clean stuff out based on how long it takes for sediment to accumulate. So there may be some other, I'm just throwing out that time period just because. It also will be something that would be when we talk about the land studies discussion and what their recommendations are. I think there will be, in addition to projects recommended and approaches recommended, a long-term, I'll use the term maintenance plan, but a long-term approach to the entire stream, the entire watershed, and other streams and other watersheds might come up. And then from there, I know, I've mentioned the sidewalk issue to allow for stormwater management on Taylorsville. That is a very, very costly project that we are looking to get. We could do in-house, we can use our engineers to design it. That part isn't that costly. It's the actual construction of it. And there are grants available for that. We have had discussions with PennDOT. We've had preliminary discussions with DCED. What's that acronym for DCED?
The Department of Community and Economic Development.
Mr. Adams, because I need to know that acronym too. To see about funding for that. That would not be immediate, but we're hoping to get that done relatively quickly if we can get in that grant program.
Right. Okay. And I understand that.
So
I
there's
just
short
get
term,
worried.
medium term, and long term.
I just get worried when you, again, use that word long-term because you don't know what that means.
In my
What-
mind, I do.
Well, to me, it means it's not happening. That's what it means to me.
That's
Okay,
not where
until
I'm
we
at.
have a plan on paper and we agree and we move forward, right? And already you're moving into next year. I'm already worried. The reason I mentioned about the process plan or the maintenance plan is because if we don't have something like that, whatever the periodicity is and whatever permits are needed and approvals and who are the stakeholders in it, if you don't have something like that, then I'm going to tell you right now, that's the start of forgetting us all over again
I
because
agree with you.
right? And I just don't want to do this again, right? And you say it's costly. You know what costly is? Trying to keep a home that you built over 30 years working when it's been ripped out from underneath your feet. And I'm sitting in meetings talking to you guys, just asking for some help in a timely fashion. And right now, I'm 2 months later, I might have some form of a backyard again, but I still don't feel comfortable and happy. Have you guys considered raising our houses at all? Has that been an option? You may want to think about it because we're thinking about it and it's not through any fault of our own. So we have serious concerns and I just keep bringing up the same stuff and trying to get it moving. Let's go.
I wanted to address, and Derek has been quiet during this, but our Public Works team does have recurring maintenance plans for a whole slew of infrastructure that they manage. So they have like stormwater basin plans, when they mow, what they do, that structures. And additionally, as Derek is reviewing and structuring, I don't want to speak for you, Derek, but building his strategy for. Oh,
Wait,
pardon
please,
me.
ma'am, please refrain from commenting, and you can come up to the microphone after he's done. I'm not going to stop you, but please, for everyone listening at home, Mr. Adams, don't talk back to us. We're trying to have a meeting where everyone gets to say in a polite manner, we're doing the work. We want to get responsiveness, but a couple things. One, we need the board to be able to speak. We also need the public to be able to speak in a professional way. And we also need people at home to be able to hear you. So if you're just shouting things out from the crowd, nobody can hear you. It doesn't get on record. And that's important. You may not think so sometimes, but it is important. We have a lot of folks that have a lot of issues. We're having the meeting. It's running late tonight because we've had other important issues in other neighborhoods. We're going to address all of them.
Yeah, my point on this was Derek's preparing his budget for next year. And so he's going to be calculating what the plans are, how to do the maintenance, and how that affects how he structures his team. And that'll be coming before the budget. And for you to all consider when we see that and we have changes in that up or down or however, that there's acceptance that we're thinking about that in the process on a recurring and regular basis. So I wanted to address Mr. Luzecki's concerns because we do actually prepare plans to run on a recurring basis. And I can appreciate folks and who are concerned, but it's also important for folks to understand what we are trying to do, how we incorporate this in our maintenance program. And that's what I want to get across, that nothing too contentious.
Yeah. And I will say that the budget process is starting now. I think you've already had internal meetings. I think I've been pretty vocal myself over the last 3-4 years about the need for infrastructure being number one in the budget versus other projects. I don't know if I've been successful the last 3 years because I had to vote against all 3 of those budgets, but I'm hopeful that this year the budget takes a turn towards infrastructure improvements and just going through fundamental things, which stormwater is a huge part of that. And when I say stormwater, I mean our stormwater infrastructure, which is inclusive of drainage and streams. So, I urge everybody to voice your opinion, review the budget items, watch those meetings. There's going to be several. They're not going to just be our normal, first and third Wednesday meetings. We're going to have special meetings on the budget as well, where all the stuff will be discussed multiple times. And I think we're going to have a lot of, I'm hoping that we have a lot of support for more spending on infrastructure and less on other things that maybe we can put off.
I have a quick.
Later. Go ahead.
If I can.
Go for it.
Sure. Mr. Gizaki, correct? I just had a quick question. You just mentioned raising your house. Is that correct? So that's something you.
Yeah, that's why Jim's sitting there. Yeah.
In my opinion, this is the kind of stuff that this township should be looking at for options.
Okay. Yeah.
To protect us.
Sure.
Right.
And
I'm not asking for anything for free, but this is the kind of stuff that should be looked at when you put together your global plan to keep water away from us.
So one of the options would be doing demolition of the existing homes in order to make the neighborhood.
I wouldn't go demolition. I just said pick it up.
So you're talking about raising it and getting it out of the waterway. Okay.
Yeah, just making it higher. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's just an off the top of the head thing, right?
Okay.
But
Because the other, and again, there is no other option but to buy the property for eminent domain in order to make it
no, I don't want to do that.
No, I'm just, and I'm saying you want us to look at all the options,
Sure.
correct? Okay.
Sure.
So
Okay,
with
yeah,
the
sure.
township,
Yeah, yeah,
we
okay,
should
that's
look at
fair.
that option as well.
That's fair.
Correct?
That's
So,
fair.
so as long as there's multiple options when it comes to modifying the existing structures. One of them is to raise it. One of them is to demolish it, correct?
That's extreme, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the option that you're considering is raising it.
I just threw it out there.
Okay.
Just make sure the record reflects raising is RAISING, not RAZING.
Yeah, because when you said RA, it's raising actually means demolishing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
elevating.
Elevating it, yes, okay.
Make it
Use
higher.
to
My
use it.
apologies.
So-
Okay.
Mr. Majewski has made his way up to the table here. Because I assume one of the things for those that, as you were saying, Mr. Lozecki, who may be interested in elevating their homes, depending on where you are in the township, whether you're a floodplain or not, Mr. Majewski addresses that, the FEMA program and generally how that can be done. So it may be, I don't know if we have something readily available, but I think it would be helpful to provide something to residents who are interested in that option to tell them what that process would be, depending on different scenarios of where they're located. No, so,
I think they need to hear that too, because I would not be interested in paying for that,
well,
right?
so
Again, this is through no fault of our own. We were there for 30 years. We were almost kind of fine, but after 4 times and now we're losing real estate, you guys broke something bad and you can't ignore it anymore. Simple as that.
Mr. Majewski, do you have items like that readily available? Or is that something that we could put together for folks?
Yes.
Turn your mic on. We're getting motion from the man in the back of the room.
Okay, thank you. We just received an email from Pima last week about.
FEMA is the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency.
Thank you. Notifying us that although the federal government currently has some of their programs on hold, they still want to keep to their standard timeline that they've done in the past to put a letter of intent from a municipality if they're interested in the flood mitigation assistance program. That program will fund elevation of homes, acquisition and demolition of homes. This is all at the request of the homeowners. This isn't something we're compelling anyone to do. They have to voluntarily want to do it. One of the things we do want to talk to Pima about is at what level they'll be funding these programs, depending on the nature of your house and where it is as far as damages that FEMA has recorded. The cost that is covered by the grant is anywhere from 75 up to 100%. Those numbers we need to finalize. This is sort of a unique situation here in Maple Vale in that the properties are not in a designated floodplain. So we need to discuss with Pima how we need to go about and do that. The township does need to put into Pima the letter of intent to file an application for assistance by October 18th. So right now we don't have to go too in depth with all the homeowners, but we want to try to explain to them as much detail as possible what can be done, how the process works. And if anyone is interested, they can contact me. Also want to try to get someone from Pima to meet with everyone because we do have, there's a lot of things that are moving parts here. So that program actually, it's not even open up yet because the federal government's put it on hold. But Pima is still trying to push it forward on that same timeline to try to get people to submit a letter of intent by the mid-October and put a grant in by the end of the year.
So in order, that's less than a month, and talking to people, getting people organized to talk about that and seeing interest is in a month, less than a month's time. I don't know if that can be done in a meaningful way, but for what does it mean to have a letter of intent? Is it just saying, hey, how much detail would you have to put in to that letter of intent? Like, hey, we're just interested in an area, or hey, these are the specific homes and the elevations they need to be put at, and this is the cost we're looking at. How much detail would we have to put into that?
the letter of intent does not have to be very detailed. They just want to know how many applications could they be expecting from a local municipality. So they want to know, is there none? Is there one? Is there 14? So they can kind of figure out their workload. Because when the actual applications get filled out and done, that is a substantial amount of work. This letter of intent does not obligate anyone that if you change your mind and say, you know, I really don't want to deal with that. It's just basically a placeholder to say that we think we're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5 applications coming into PEMA, which will then be ultimately reviewed by FEMA.
And if we, the homeowners would put those applications in, not the township? Is that how I heard that?
No, the applications come from the township.
Township direct.
So FEMA basically has this fund. They give money to PEMA if the grant applications are accepted based on the applications filed by the township on behalf of the homeowner. So it's basically the homeowner to the township, to PEMA, to FEMA. And then if the grant gets accepted, it goes on back from FEMA to PEMA to the township on behalf of the homeowner.
So basically we don't, that way the homeowner's not left out on their own trying to go through this process. We can quarterback it for them. We're facilitating it to give.
That's correct. And I'm familiar with most of the aspects of the program. Like I said, the only slight difference is that these aren't homes that are in a designated floodplain with a designated elevation that you go to a designated height to apply the grant. This is sort of a special case in that the stream is not studied by FEMA, therefore is no floodplain established. Therefore, I'm not sure exactly how you figure out how high to raise the house. Maybe they go by historic high levels and then go a couple of feet above that. But that's something I want to talk to PEMA about, and then maybe have them talk to the homeowners directly, either individually or in small groups.
And there's no condition within the program that says it has to be in a floodplain?
I don't believe so.
Any reason not to submit a letter and say?
Well, I think at this point, it's just figuring out how many.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we just got this last week. Jim's gonna coordinate with PEMA and then we'll have better information for you probably at your first meeting.
I'm making up a number, but if we said, if I'll totally make up a number, but if we said, hey, we got 6 homes that might want to put in for, we might want to put in for this program, and ultimately we have 2 or 3 that apply, or we have 10 that apply, does it really matter? Does it affect us at all?
No. Yeah. They wouldn't like you to say we intend to put in 2 then put in 10. I don't know that there's any prohibition against it.
Why don't we
but
shoot high? And
They
just
would
say
not
all
like
of
that.
them? Can we say all of them and then back down from there? Would that be the safest way of doing it?
Well, I think the thing is to talk to homeowners about how this works, how the process works, some of the timeframes, some of the items and costs involved, to see, do they think they might want to move forward or not?
So is this, I'm thinking out loud, so people tell me if I'm being crazy here. Next time I think we're gonna have people that would be interested will be at the October 11th meeting, right? The listening meeting. Is that something we could put on that agenda to because it's still a week before that letter's due. It might be an opportunity to explain it a little bit better, get a feel for how many people might be interested. In the meantime, spread the word, right? That there's an option out there to get people thinking about it, so they don't have to commit to it a week ahead of time, but they can have a better feeling as to what they might be interested in if they want to move forward with elevating their home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we can absolutely do it.
And if you don't get a good response from that, just submit the letter anyway with a number.
Get a couple in
Like just throw a number in there, and then if we have to back down from it, that's fine. At least we don't miss the deadline.
Yeah, well, it's not a hard, exact, fast deadline because the federal government hasn't even authorized the program
So
yet.
they haven't even approved it yet.
Right. In past years, it was authorized at the end of September with the October 18th, 19th deadline to get a letter of intent in so that Pima can line up how many people they need to process the applications that are due to them by the middle of November so that they could submit to FEMA by, I forget when their date is, like early January.
Okay.
It is a lot of work involved for us and for the government agencies.
From a process perspective, Dave, our next meeting's the October 4th. This, I'll call that town hall meeting, is October 11th. Our next meeting after October 4th, 18th, which is the due date of the letter. So would we have to put it on our next agenda?
I would recommend you put it on the next agenda and we'll have to word it in some way that it's conditioned upon further information received at the October 11th meeting. We can do it in a way that gives you some flexibility, but hopefully. So I would think.
We can get that done, given the timeframe. There's something to say.
Are you saying put it on the agenda just so you can authorize putting the letter of intent in?
Yes, yes.
Okay. In the past, we haven't done that here in the township. It's just been, because it's non-binding, it's just people are interested and we just say, we're interested. And then from there, then the board would have to authorize if we went ahead and submitted the grant application. So procedurally, I don't know that you necessarily have to authorize saying we might be interested in something.
Not for nothing. I think if it's on an agenda, we'll get people to show up and discuss it, and we'll get another opportunity for feedback if they can't go to the meeting on the 11th and come to the meeting on the 4th, give some feedback. So we'll get a feel for initially how many homeowners might want to do it, get some more people on the 11th to see if we get more feedback. And then by the time the 18th comes around, we'll have a couple opportunities to hear what those numbers might be. That's just my thought process.
Understood.
Yeah.
Can I comment?
Well, so
I just want to be clear. That's why, and I'm going to sit down and shut up. I just want to be clear, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, raising a house, that's to me very invasive, right? That shouldn't be the answer to this problem, right? It's an option. It's an extreme option. I don't really want it, right? But it's something to consider. The real answer is you got to get the water away from us. That's where you need to focus, and that's where you need to expend your energy now. That's where you got to look right now. The raising the house thing, demolition, certainly options. Does anybody want any of that? No, not really. Get the water away from us. That's where you got to be, and you got to do it now. Thank you.
So Derek, do we, or even Jim, do we have, the township has done a ton of work on behalf of PennDOT. Because a lot of this area is driven by PennDOT's impervious area, PennDOT right away not being maintained by PennDOT, and the township has just gone ahead and done it for them. Do we have a clear understanding of what PennDOT could, from a maintenance perspective, because we want to hold their feet to the fire too, to make sure everyone who should be responsible is responsible because they own the property. Do we have a clear understanding of where that stream and surrounding vegetation, et cetera, are PennDOT versus township? So we can get on their case.
Yeah, I think we'd have to look into that.
I mean, we have parcel maps. We can go through and look where the.
No,
and all
I thought you meant in terms
But
of their
we also,
responsibility. That I'm not sure.
we also want to, I think we need to do that because, township's probably spent $500,000 doing things in the last few months, where a lot of that is stuff that I think PennDOT, from what I've seen happen, a lot of that is PennDOT maintenance that just hasn't occurred within PennDOT right away. And we just took the bull by the horns and did it for them. Now we need to, when they came to visit, I'll say, the area last week, part of that was reminding them of that. But we can continue to do that as part of this whole process. So I think that's something else we need to look at, is to make sure that it's very clear what's there so that we can remind them too that, hey, you guys have responsibility here.
Yep, absolutely.
Jim or Derek, anything else? Dave, anything else to add?
I don't have anything else. I know some folks probably have questions and happy to respond to those.
I have to be working. So Nicole Mummy, 36 Maple Vale. First, I'd like to thank Chief and Derek, your teams for getting out so quickly for that tree. My sister actually was driving by and it fell right behind her. So she called home, I called the police, and they were very quick getting out there, and within an hour it was gone. So thank you. In terms of, I guess, phase 2 of Mapleville, would part of that be considering putting a full grate back at the end of Highland? Or not the end, the bottom?
So I talked to our engineer a few days ago about it.
Mhm.
He's looking at all options, right? Or their engine, I should say the engineering team is looking at all options, including a grate or including additional larger inlets on either side, looking at even, are they gonna widen the culvert to give more volume space underneath there? So they're looking at all options. So we'll see that probably by our next meeting to see
Right.
what ultimately what the engineering and the math show is best.
Right, because it was there and then it was gone, and
Yeah,
I'm just thinking in terms of water coming down, if it might be something that would catch the water before it even comes across the street. Not all of it, obviously.
well, yeah, I'll just, from a high level, some of the issue with that is that once that stream is full,
Oh, yeah.
right, it's just gonna go across anyway.
Right.
So there may not, from a volume perspective, there may not be much of a benefit because there's only a little bit of space there. So
Okay.
that's something they're running the numbers to see if that'll do anything.
So as long as it's
Yeah.
being considered. In
And if I could
terms,
just chime in really quick, just to let you, sorry.
okay,
To answer your question, to help with Dan, so yes, we have looked at that as well. So currently, the approach we're taking is adding more inlets along Highland. And then connecting to the upstream inlets as well. There appears to be an 18-inch pipe that runs down the swale. So what we're looking at is upsizing the connection pipe, adding, I think right now we're at 2 pairs of inlets, which would help increase the capture area and lessen the burden on those lower inlets where the trench drain was. As well as increasing the capacity of the outlet. So we're looking at potential 2 pipes to the maximum size we're allowed through a general permit to increase capacity to the stream. And then of course the stream issue we're addressing with the wooded debris and the eventual gravel bank removal. Will also be part of this phase 2. We're checking capacity of the culverts. We've already begun that. There's the culvert that's under Highland, and I know there's another one under a driveway. So we're checking the capacity of those culverts. So just to give an explanation on what we're doing and our approach for now, and like I said, it'll be open to any other recommendations and options, but that's our approach for now.
Nicole, can I jump in for 1 sec? Because this relates to the same thing. I'm going to lose my thought if I don't. How often, and this goes back to maintenance plans, how often do we actually clean out the pipes in the whole neighborhood in Hillwood Terrace? Because for anyone that all of us have probably been up there during, this is time of year when we start doing the leaf program, and we always see huge piles of leaves along all those neighborhoods. Any inlet that's there, you can see those piled over with leaves. So I'd be almost positive that if we're not doing regular clean out there, that we have a lot of debris in those pipes, ultimately lessening capacity, which would have more flow on the street instead of going into the inlets and the pipes.
The township does not currently have a stormwater pipe maintenance plan in place in terms of every 2 years, every pipe is jet and flush. There is no plan in place. There are problem inlets that are known that collect debris and sediment that the crews know and maintain habitually and know that they need habitual maintenance just because they know it's either a low box or at the bottom of a hill. They know of the problem ones that are there. And again, there are a lot of residents that know of their own problem boxes that do call into us, just say, hey, don't forget about this box this year or something. And we do go out for that. So I would say that the problem ones that we know about, we do get on a regular basis as needed. But there is no plan in place for constant jetting of pipes at the sides unless an issue comes apart.
How about televising?
There is no televising plan in place.
Is that something you recommend for the future?
Wait till you see the budget, yeah.
All right, there we go. Sorry, Nicole, but that's
Okay,
just-
it was actually another one of my
all right.
questions was leaves. As you know, I have 3 dogs and my grandmother lives at the top of Highland, so
Yeah.
obviously I walk all around.
Mhm.
So actually, in terms of leaves, I believe in the pamphlet that the township provides, it says that leaves are supposed to be kept on the curb on people's yards. Obviously, people don't do that. So is there some way to find them, regulate them, something so people, because like you said, on Highland, and I watch, I actually many times I'll be going by and I'll take my foot and try to clear leaves out.
Same.
Is there a way to have someone be monitoring that? Because, you know, leaves are going to be starting to go out. It's going to start to rain, it's going to snow, whatever, windy. So is there any way that at least certain problem areas they can monitor maybe better?
So
I know everywhere is a problem area when it comes to.
yeah,
leaves,
it's
but I
an
just-
issue of enforcement versus education, getting and how many resources can we put towards enforcement when other things are going on? 100%. Not only are we trying to keep the storm drains clean, but you end up losing a lane of traffic in a neighborhood road where we don't have sidewalks. I walk my dog too. We say hi every morning. So Derek, can you address that?
Yeah, no, in terms of, and again, when we know a large storm is going out, the crews do go out and check. Again, the problem areas, low-lying areas that we know that we have habitual flooding issues with. In terms of notifying the residents, we do try, and again, this will be my second leaf season. We'll make sure we put as much public information out there as possible to remind the residents that the leaves stay on the lawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want them on the lawn. We encourage the residents to feel free to tarp them also to stop them from blowing in the street. And our guys will move the tarp back when it's time and we'll throw it, roll it up and leave it on their lawn after we collect the leaves. But we want the leaves on the lawn.
Okay.
We won't want them in the street.
Nicole, I'll say.
We don't want them around objects either. No mailbox, get them cleared so the trucks don't hit them. But yeah, the lawn is perfectly.
I'll say that, what's the old saying? It takes a village. There's nothing wrong with, making sure, we can post on our neighborhood Facebook pages. This is I try to do that every now and again. I don't know if anyone listens to me, but
I see them.
appreciate it. Just reminding our neighbors that, hey, this has an impact if you're putting, you might not think so. I mow my leaves. I've never put them out anywhere because that's just not a thing for me, but just gentle reminders to try and limit enforcement if we can. That's usually the better way to do it, but just communicate.
Oh, I have 2 smaller points and then I have one other question. The meetings from the flash flood meetings, are there minutes from that? Just because sometimes it's easier to read the minutes than to watch the video.
There are not minutes. It's just the videos. Yeah.
And then in terms of the land study meeting, I kind of heard, but I wasn't 100% paying attention. Are you putting out some type of flyer to those who would be in the land study area about the meeting? Or is it just through the website and the social media? Because I know there's people who aren't following those items.
I mean, we can, again, it's a pretty expansive,
I didn't know. How.
I don't know how. I mean, we can look into different ways of notifying folks. I mean, again, at this point, we were going to use website,
Right, I mean,
public announcements,
neighborhood Facebook page. and
social media
email.
channels, the listserv that we have, those kinds of things. So.
In terms of management of certain areas at the bottom of Highland, if you're looking up, so the left side that is owned. Actually, that's
Going towards the bridge?
no, not the PennDOT side, on your side.
Okay.
So
On
that
Highland itself, I'm sorry.
on the very end. So there's someone who maintains a little bit of the grass. And then I believe, name is escaping me, the people who live. Goddard.
No.
Skinner, they maintain, but there's a big chunk of it that nobody cuts or maintains or anything. Is that owned by somebody?
So Jim, can you correct me here? Way back, so this is how we've learned some stuff. Way back in, was it 1969, there was a zoning hearing board meeting where PennDOT took control of land that was originally part of 2 Highland. So the fairs, who who lives in the Bears, yeah. Took part of that parcel way back in the sixties. So I think if we're
No, no,
talking about the
we're
same.
talking about,
Skinner,
The other side.
yeah,
Talking towards,
the other
oh,
side.
next to,
Pair of
Baz
boxes.
and Katie,
Yeah.
the greenhouse.
Yes.
So the parcel, again, most of that is PennDOT right away. They have, I don't know what their property line is set back from the stream, but it goes from them to PennDOT right away, I believe, directly. Even though like I said, township dealt with it. It's actually PennDOT right away. And then the next house south is the Skinner's driveway.
Right.
So, and that's,
So PennDOT is responsible for mowing that?
they're responsible for maintaining it, yeah.
Okay, so somebody and I was gonna take a picture as I was walking the dogs,
Yeah.
but I didn't. There's maybe this much that is maintained to an extent, maybe not on the hill into the creek. And then there's about this much between the Skinners and that piece that nobody maintains. So I'm just wondering who is supposed to maintain that? And as we see it getting overgrown, who are we supposed to notify that it is so someone can take care of it?
So Derek, let's
Yeah,
get back to her, make
Yeah,
sure
no,
we're correct.
it is PennDOT's responsibility, just like the other patch that you see is nicely mowed on the other side on the north side of Highland is nicely mowed. That is usually nicely mowed by the township and or the Joint Toll Bridge Commission. We do kind of, if their guys are in the area, if our guys are in the area, we do mow that. That little spot that you're talking about, if the guys see it getting way overgrown because it starts to become a hindrance, they do take care of it. But again, it's not the township's responsibility.
So, but it's not the person who lives there. They don't own from their property on the other side of the street.
If I'm referring, if we're looking at the way that right of way is there extends so far from the road, it would be PennDOT's responsibility, not the green,
Yeah.
the green.
North of Highland and south of Highland, the PennDOT right away is pretty wide.
Yeah.
Pretty wide.
Okay. That answers my question.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Where that line is, I don't know exactly, but I know it's wide. Yeah. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Hi, April Boys Clower, Mapleville Drive. I'll try to make this quick. I know you guys don't feel well. We'll try to get you out of here. What's going on with the grate in front of by Mike's house on the corner of Mapleville and Taylorsville? There's like a big giant piece of plank over top of it and there's nothing.
Yeah, and April, I think you might not, and I don't think you were at the flood meeting. So,
I was at the flood meeting
oh, you
and you guys said you had to make it thinner because.
No, it was, so I'm not sure, and it's a great question for Paul. I actually did forget to follow up with Paul.
Okay.
Paul, do you know where the design sits for that redesign of that top or that box? I did forget about that myself.
Correct, yeah. We are currently working on it, finding a better design to make that work. So that's in the process right now. Trying to get that as soon as possible.
So it's supposed to rain a lot this weekend. And like as soon as possible is like 2 weeks ago. I can't stress enough how hard this has been on the families in our neighborhood to sit here every time it rains and still be freaked out by this, to be calling each other, for our families to be calling us to see if we're okay. The fact that these things are as soon as possible, it is a sewer grate. I don't think you need a rocket scientist to figure out what you need to put on top of there. And I'm super sorry, but we're very frustrated at this point. We appreciate the work that was done to stabilize our land. There's no talk about replacing our property that sat on top of your easement that collapsed. Their shed, my son's play area, thankfully he's not here to listen to me talk about it again, and our patio and our furniture that sat next to it that was sucked down when that land collapsed. I understand you're staying out of our houses. I mean, I don't really understand why that's not everyone else's fault too, but what is happening to that? What is happening to the things that we couldn't even find? I have no idea where his playhouse is. Still to this day, no one has ever reported what happened to that. And there's been no talk about what's going to happen to replace that for us. You said call the United Way. They're open 9 to 5 and not on weekends. I work full time. I've been doing my best to keep in touch with the neighbors, to keep in touch with you all, to have random people show up at our houses whenever they wanted to show up with equipment, walk into our yards, never knock on our doors. Been trying to juggle all of that. But we really need you to start thinking about us as human beings who live on these properties, whose families are there too. And the stress that's put on us, the woman who spoke about her anxiety and her sadness and her fear, every time it rains. I cannot stress that enough to you. I appreciate you say that you guys think about it too. I appreciate, Derek, all the work you guys have done. And I don't mean it to belittle any of that. But just know this isn't done for us just because that pipe is filled. And we're in no better position other than, like you said, to your point, Our land probably won't collapse the next time. There's nothing to make me feel like we're not going to flood again. We still didn't put floors in. The last time we flooded 2 years ago, my downstairs was done in less than 2 months because I knew what to do. I was ready to go. I wasn't scared. I have not painted. I have not put floors down. We are living in the effect of a condo right now upstairs in our home because we're still scared from this. So if you could please let us know when that grate is going to be fixed at the corner of the street, we'd appreciate it. And sooner rather than later, please. I know you're working hard on these plans. I know these aren't things that are just, oh, cool, we'll just move this around. It's not Jenga. It's not Tetris. I know that there's details, but please consider how quickly we need this to happen because this is affecting human beings and their lives at this point. Again, thank you.
I'm looking at the street view. Which grade are we talking about?
The one on the
There's two of them on Maple Vale at that one entrance, so the north or south?
North side.
Yeah,
North
north
side.
side. If you recall, that was the one that was always high. The one that was always
Yeah.
questionably high. Before we paved,
Most
plan
recent.
came out to do a 6-inch riser on that, which is atypical of that style box.
Mhm.
So a 6-inch was installed, paved, subsequently failed probably about a week and a half later due to probably truck traffic, to school buses and trash trucks. So it did crack and the grate fell off. So a steel plate was put on for safety and to keep traffic moving.
So instead of a grate, there's a steel plate right now.
Steel
so
plate,
Nothing
it
can
is- it is
flow in.
road-plated.
So basically, nothing can flow in. So is there a redesign happening or we just need a new grate?
No,
What's the approach?
A redesign would need to happen because if we put an 8-inch riser back on, obviously the inlet will be high as it was previously.
Yeah.
It wasn't receiving.
Nothing will
water
get
during-
into it.
It was, yeah, correct.
Right.
Correct. So just like it was during the flood, no water got to it because it was too high. It got lowered, so water could get to it. Now it failed.
So this happened when?
I'll have to check.
Within the last few weeks?
Yeah.
It just failed in the last few weeks?
I'm not sure exact date, but yeah.
So does RV has to do a design? Does it need any permitting?
No.
Once it's.
No.
So they just gotta hurry up on the design and
Just
then,
hurry up on the design and the contractor can,
and then the contractor's gonna do it. We're not gonna do it ourselves.
yeah, one or the other, yeah.
Can we do an emergency removal of that steel plate during the rain event this weekend to ensure that it
We
doesn't
would,
block up?
we would severely limit the traffic at the intersection, but it could obviously be done. It would almost be a one way in, one way out.
Just keep,
Mr. Adams, please let him respond.
Yeah, if you wanted to remove the plate, we would have to reduce the in and out, just like almost during construction, how it was tight there. It'd
just during the weekend.
absolutely be redone.
If there's a rain event coming and we don't have it final yet, if there's a
Yeah.
short-term, I hate to use the word fix, but if there's a short-term approach we can use to be safe, let's do it, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Short-term fix, you could probably raise it up on top of. parking.
Sorry,
Sorry, Michael McPeak,
Thank you.
24 Maple Vale.
appreciate it.
You could probably lift that plate on top of a parking stop. 6 inches, the water will run underneath it. Nobody can step on it. It still needs safety barriers, so the car doesn't run into it and damage it, but it should be a nice, quick, easy fix for that. I had two questions. One, also to Derek. This is going to be the heaviest rain we've had since the storm this weekend. And it's a weekend, not a weekday. Is there scheduled maintenance to go by and look at how well or bad the work that's been done fares during this rain? A lot of the stream cleaned out, took a lot of debris out, a lot more water is going to flow. But I guarantee you, there's a lot of loose stuff now that wasn't moving before that will move because there's a clean out. I have no idea if it will be affected negatively, it will be a positive. But until you see it, I don't think anybody really knows. And again, it's the heaviest storm. My wife worries about every drop of rain. Other neighbors worry about that. I don't worry nearly as much, but this one is worth putting extra effort in, having people scheduled to go by. And it's weather. You can't say I'll be there at 2:00 because that may not be the right time. But people scheduled to go by a couple times during the weekend and look at not only our street, but the stream and other improvements that were made and how effective they seem to be.
The second thing I had was, we were told a few of the things we were not allowed to do. The state we wanted the state to widen the tunnel under Taylorsville, and they said no. Are we doing it? I know it's going to be our money, and we'd rather the state pay for it. But if that was the correct answer, and that may be to the engineer,
Just so I'm clear on what you're asking, are you talking about the culvert that runs across Taylorsville close to the off ramp from the bridge?
yes, in the very beginning, conversation was about making it wider or deeper or something like that. And then we heard back from you, the board in general, that it's the state's land and the state's not going to do it. That's a true statement, but it's not an answer to what's going to fix the problem. So can we put in a parallel culvert to take off some of that extra water? Can we do, what other things can we do? There are a couple other things we were told we can't do. We can't dredge the creek, but could we put berms around it, which basically increase the volume of the creek? If you go 6 feet away and put a berm 2 feet high, you'll basically increase the volume of the creek, and it will end up in the canal. And but you're not doing anything structurally that
Yeah.
that
I know what you're asking.
the canal will say no to, because they can't say no to that.
So anything within 50 feet of the top of bank of a stream is state regulated? So they
They'll do 55 feet.
and you'd be in the road or middle of someone's house.
For some of it, I mean, there are restrictions, right? You could do a berm on both sides, but one side's a bridge, they only have to do that side. But the stream is not always within 50 feet of the houses. There's areas where we could do it. On the lower lot, on the other side of our development, the south side, somebody suggested a retention basin. And they're talking about studies and this and that. In the meantime, can anything be done? There's a bike trail that goes up and down. If it was all raised to level, or not bike trail,
I know what you're talking about.
we bike it,
Brought that up
a
too.
walk trail.
Yeah.
If that was all raised to nice and level, that will keep more water into there, and more water could be diverted into that field. It's not a retention basin, but it's still going to be a place for the water to go.
Yeah.
I know the canal doesn't want the water going into the canal, but it's not going to go uphill. It's going to end up in the canal someplace. I think the double pipe was a great idea. The same amount of water is going to end up in the canal sooner or later. And so without breaking their laws, we can skirt them and do fixes that will help alleviate the problem.
Yeah.
I'd like to make sure they're addressed, and they may be part of the engineer report or not.
Some of that may be part of the engineer's work that he's doing. A lot of it will be part of what land studies is doing, I think, because a lot of what you're talking about is what I'll call bigger picture watershed stuff.
Right.
That they would do potentially, where we talk about additional basins, where we talk about widening existing personally, I think a lot of the issue is catching water further upstream before it gets down to the bottom, before that snowball rolls downhill.
Right. I agree. But some of those bigger picture ones, like I said before, you're not talking 2 weeks, you're not talking 2 months. You'd be lucky you're talking 2 years before all this is done. What temporary fixes that could be done in the shorter time period would be a big help. It will help for the water. It will also help for the peace of mind of all the residents. That's all I have. Thank you.
If I could chime in, Dan, if that's okay. So to answer some of the questions, so my goal with the pre-application meeting with Army Corps is see what's in our availability to increase the capacity of the stream. Because I think that would be a great help. Obviously, when it overtopped, that seems to be a major issue. So in terms of the stream, that's something that is already in plan and set to be discussed. In terms of the
Paul, can I ask you a
pipe-
quick question about the stream?
Yeah.
One of the things that we found out, I don't know if everyone has heard this or not, is that PennDOT relocated the stream back in the 60s? again?
Yes.
When they built the bridge in 95 before, didn't go all the way to Philly back then, but when it came off of Cloverleaf and as part of taking some of the property at to Highland, they relocated the stream and made it more into a roadside ditch in some instances on the west side of Taylorsville. So they made it cross, they relocated where it crosses Taylorsville further north than what it naturally would have. So, and then they put in that concrete embankment where it almost does a 90-degree through the culvert that this gentleman was just speaking about, and then goes into the township property. So when they did that, at least eyeballing it, it looks like they built berms, to your point about berms, between roughly the Skinner's house where the stream and the south side of Highland to keep that stream more within its banks than, because I think they probably saw some of this issue coming, would be my guess, and tried to channelize it along Taylorsville further north and then underneath Taylorsville, which is their road. So when you're talking to the Corps and DEP, you know, we don't currently have the natural stream channel per se there. So I'm curious as to what ideas they may have because of the historic channelization that PennDOT's done to the stream, to see how much wiggle room we may have with the regs to maybe, I don't know how much ability we have to make it a little more natural flow, but to make it a little less 90 degrees where it runs into something, jumps the banks, and then goes into Mapleville. I think that's a big part of the issue.
Yeah, I think those are great topics, and 100%. Yeah, we'll discuss that for sure. Again, anything we can do to increase that capacity, that's a great point, and we will discuss that on our pre-application meeting. So thank you. And then if I could just one other topic I was just mentioning, and about the additional pipe into the canal. So again, 100% agree. Back when we had the phone call with DEP and DCNR, again, my argument was it's going to get there anyway. We're not increasing impervious. So we 100% agree with you, and that's the same argument we gave, and you know, we're trying to get their approval and see, you know, what they're going to require. So again, we're on the same page, and that is the goal. So I just wanted to make that a note.
Anything else, Paul?
That's it.
Mr. Adams? Any other public comment?
I'd like to ask Derek first. Tomorrow's Thursday and Friday, and then
Please follow protocol, state your name and whether or not you're a resident.
Richard Adams, 221 Taylorsville Road for 72 years. Derek, do you visualize that you're going to have a full crew working in the creek tomorrow, Friday and Saturday? I'm sorry, Thursday and Friday, full well knowing that Saturday and Sunday, there's supposed to be a rather nasty storm.
We will first obviously address this inlet box, make sure that's available for flow.
I didn't ask you that.
I'm
I'm asking you, do you feel you're going to have a full crew of men working in the stream?
If the men are available, they are here. The guys will be working.
In the stream, not somewhere else in the township.
We will take care of this inlet box, make sure that's available for flow.
What, the inlet box on
That has-
Maple Vale?
That has the road plate on it. We'll
Yeah.
take care of that first. I have a driver tomorrow that's getting a test done. So one of the guys that works in the stream is not available tomorrow because he's getting a CDL test. So no, he's not available.
Okay,
And if the other guys can get in there, if their tasks are done from today, yes, they'll get into the stream.
well, it's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock. Don't we know that their task?
Mr. Adams, please, can you direct your questions to the board and not to Derek individually? I'd appreciate that. Thank you. He can answer to me. How about that?
It's now 67 days and 9.5 weeks since Saturday, July the 15th. As of today, no proposed plans have been provided to the public to even suggest how an engineered solution to prevent excessive creek water from spilling over onto Taylorsville Road. We do have a right to know how the future plans will correct the problem. We are tired of being treated like mushrooms. What are the plans to prevent the creek water from backing up onto Taylorsville Road through the stormwater catch basins, grates, inlets? Is anybody really trying to put a stop to the water coming out of the creek onto Taylorsville Road and then going everywhere into Mapleville? Is there a?
Yes, the efforts are being made by the
planning being
township.
done?
Yes.
When are we gonna, it's 9.5 weeks.
So some of these items, and Dan, you mentioned a little bit about the senator's road tour. That was one of the items that we were stressing to PennDOT. Again, they communicated that they were going to install backflow preventers in some of the inlets that you're referencing. I think, Mr. Adams, we stressed the priority of this. We understand the urgency, but we need cooperation too. And
Yeah.
I
How many
don't.
people from this engineering outfit are working on the.
Yeah, but you're talking about PennDOT infrastructure that needs to be addressed in some ways to address the issues that you're referring to.
Are we getting any cooperation from them?
Have they done the work yet?
Have they done any plans yet?
Again, we continue to put pressure on them. I don't know what more we can do as a single municipality out of 2,500, putting pressure on the Commonwealth.
Yeah, my right to know has not been returned either, but we're near the 30 days of my questions to them.
To PennDOT, yeah.
Yes. When are elevations going to be established? So a solution to diverting the road water over other than into the creek on the west side of Taylorsville Road. I've asked or somebody get out there with transits and there are no plans as existing evidently from what I'm being told as to what are those different elevations so that your engineering outfit can come up with some ideas, thoughts, until you get out there and find all the different elevations. How can you even sit in a drafting board and work up something that hopefully the PennDOT would agree with and can be presented to the people most affected by this? Please. I'd like an answer. Has anybody made arrangements to go out there with transits and establish elevations of what you're
Of historic development, to retrofit historic development? No, no one has done that at this point.
Mr. Adams, you're talking about going out and doing a topographic survey.
just of the stream and the culverts and whatnot, so you can intelligently put together a proposal of what you're going to do to put a stop to the water overflowing onto Taylorsville Road and into Mapleville.
So again, we have executed an agreement or proposed a contract with Land Studies to start that process so that we can address not only, see, you focus very much on the very tail end of the stream after everything is already down there. Okay? I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Okay, this is what I do for a living. When you only look at putting a basin at the very end of a stream, it has no impact. When you only look at certain sections of the very bottom of a stream, there's very little impact. There's very little effective impact.
For that, why are we talking about it? I'm asking.
Because that's how we're going to fix the problem, is if we address the bigger picture. It's the only way we can adequately address the problem. That's the only way to do it, is to address the entire watershed. So we see exactly where water is going so that we can manage it accordingly. Everything else is just guesswork until we get that done. We can do other things like clean the stream like we've been doing, and we can put more inlets in, we can clean the stream, we can yell at PennDOT, we can yell at DCNR, we can yell at DEP. And if they don't agree with us, we can look for workarounds, but we are going to keep pushing. Okay, so I know this is the one meeting where you can have public comment, but I would encourage everybody to get on, and I know folks have written letters to DCNR and DEP, and we appreciate that because we've done the same thing. We also got to push PennDOT, I think we've been sending letters to our state rep, state senator. They've been involved, they continue to be involved, but we need to keep pushing. It frustrates the heck out of me that PennDOT hasn't done anything yet. The DCNR has given us the cold shoulder on the pipe. I can't use the words I want to use right now about how I feel about that. But we need to all push in the same direction so that we can get this done.
Can I speak now? May I speak now? Are you done?
All right.
I'm asking
Yes,
a question.
Yes, you have 3 minutes for your public comment.
And everybody in this township that pays taxes should be irate that catch basin on Maple Vale Drive South entrance was, I'd like to see the prints of what that contractor was told to sit that catch basin up so high that water could not go in it. Then we lower it now, and now we're going to have another contractor come out there and make the corrections. Why do we have to pay 3 times for something to be done correctly? You would be irate if.
I am irate. I won't use the words again, but can we please, like we're doing with, we talked about Woodside Road Bike Path.
Who approves blueprints that are put out, plans? Nobody.
Actually, we do. We have to have an engineer review, QA/QC them and sign and seal them, and that's what goes out with bids. So that has to get done. What I'm saying is, much like we talked about with Woodside Road Bike Path, there's issues with the bike path failing.
I don't
certain
care
areas,
about
and we need to
bike
understand.
paths. We're talking about.
I'm using it as an example because it's the same thing. Something
Don't need to.
was not done correctly, so we need to get to the root cause so that it can be fixed and it doesn't happen again.
The specifications must not have been written correctly.
It's usually either that or it's the contractor messed something up. So we need to figure out what happened. I'm not disagreeing with you. We just need to figure out what happened so it doesn't happen again.
Okay. I now have a copy of the request for money sent in on December the 21st, 2022 for the Hillwood Terrace Highland Drive Bridge. It's single applicant for assistance, applicant ID 9518089. And I have the single applicant ID 202212213638. I sent in a request to know, and I got it back at 3:30 this afternoon. And that request to correct the problems of the Hillwood Terrace Highland Drive Bridge has not been approved. I've had that, I think it's 11 pages or whatever, for quite a few days now. I've read through it. And if I was a person in Harrisburg sitting at a desk and that was the next one for me to look over and approve, there are so many errors. There's so many red flags in there. I would just take that request and put it on the bottom of the pile and go to the next one. Doesn't anybody read these things before they send them off for money? The totalized cost of construction is $173,637. However, you go to the next page, you are asking for a grant of $500,000. Boy, that sure looks like a red flag, doesn't it? You only need 173,000, but you're asking for 500,000. And there's no words there that even suggest what you're going to use the other money for, or why you're asking for it, or what the need is. I just can't believe that this government is so disorganized and okay. Hillwood Terrace Development Impervious Service Water Management Study. I'm being led to believe there never was one. It was before that was required. And I've asked that now is the time to do one. And you keep telling me about this organization out in Lancaster County, I believe it is, has a contract been let with them to do impervious water, whatever you call it, study of the Hillwood Terrace.
No.
When are we, it's 9.5 weeks. We're approaching things that need to be decisions.
You're offering things as if they are definitive solutions. They need to be evaluated.
I agree.
They need to be evaluated, but you're standing here, you're standing here offering, and we appreciate that. But there needs to be this overall evaluation before we get into
sign the contract with him and get him in.
The contract is signed, but you're not talking about doing the work that they're
No
doing.
construction work. We're studying.
No, I understand that,
water.
but you're talking about a scope of work that's very specific, as if it's the definitive response to the issues that are being being experienced.
We need the information before you make decisions as to height of dikes or whatever.
Mr. Adams, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comment, and you've been up here for a good 10 minutes. And we have other issues to deal with tonight. I appreciate your concerns and I share them. But we need to move on with the meeting.
9.5 weeks, 67 days, and we're doing.
All right, so moving on to
doing
item
what's
B
next.
under the manager. All right, thank you. Managers report, item B.
Sure. Sure. So before you this evening is the minimum municipal obligations for 2024 for the 2 township defined benefit plans, the police plan, the non-uniform pension plan, and the defined contribution plan. Consistent with Act 205 of 1984, it requires the presentation of the minimal municipal obligation for the subsequent year prior to the last business day in September. And so in your packet was the respective MMOs for the plan. Just to sort of provide some context, so on the police plan, the MMO in 2023 was $1,034,695. I'm sorry, that's the 2024 MMO. It's down from $1,070,523, which was the 2023 MMO. Reason for that is that we had some members of the plan enter into the drop. So as a result of that, the annual payroll that's subject to the calculation is less. The non-uniform pension plan, the 2024 MMO is $400,253. Again, that's down as well. As the board is aware, this is a legacy plan. So again, this is not available to new hires. It's essentially a closed plan with existing members. Again, that MMO is down as well for 2024, roughly $3,000 compared to last year's MMO. And then finally, there's the MMO for the non-uniform defined contribution plan. Again, this is the plan where payroll is being added as new members are entering on the non-uniform side. And that is up in 2024. The MMO for 2024 is $157,374. It was a little over $118,000 in 2023. So again, these have been calculated consistent with information provided by the plan actuary. And we would look for the board to acknowledge receipt of these, and ultimately these would be incorporated into the 2024 budget.
It'd be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the plans as indicated by the township manager.
Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any board discussion?
I have a question, but it can wait. So
Okay.
Public comment? Online?
There's no public comment online.
That being said, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries 3-0. All right, moving on to the zoning hearing board items.
Yes, before I get to that, let me report on the executive session, Mr. Chairman. The executive session started tonight at 6:30. It ended just before this meeting started. All board members present here were present at the executive session, along with new member, Mr. Coyle remotely, and the chief and Mr. Kratz and myself as well. Items discussed involved litigation, personnel, real estate, and informational items. Under zoning hearing board, the first matter is appeal number Z-23, 2016. Michael McGinnis for the property located at 0 Edgewood Road, tax parcel 20-034-130. Applicant requests a variance from the township zoning orders 200-21 to permit lot 1 to have a net lot area of 8,889 square feet and lot 2 to have a net lot area of 9,972 square feet, where 12,500 square feet is otherwise required. Also from zoning ordinance 200-22 to permit a front yard setback of 70 feet where 80 feet is otherwise required, from 200-52.C1 small a 2 small b to permit a maximum density of 4.62 dwelling units per acre where 2.70 dwelling units per acre of net buildable site area is otherwise required, and 200-61.C to not require the minimum building setbacks to be measured from the limit of the resource protected lands in order to subdivide this property into 2 lots and construct a single family dwelling on each lot. This is an amendment from an earlier application. We initially looked at this and recommended participation at a minimum. It would be noted that the applicant's name is Michael McGinnis, who actually is the attorney for the applicant. The applicant, I found out after I made my initial recommendation, is Brian Brzezinski, who also is a client of my firm, still one of my other partners for a matter completely separate from this. If the board does decide, and it certainly has its right to oppose it, we will have to get outside counsel to represent the township in that process. So either way, participation or opposition would require a vote.
Board have any thoughts?
I move to oppose.
Second?
Any comments from the board? Getting late, I'll say this is trying to put a lot here, and I don't go for basically some very important variances that I just don't do support above. So I also strongly support opposing these variance requests. Any public comment online? I mean, that means no. Call to question. All those in favor of opposition?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Yes, thank you. The next one, appeal Z-23 2028. Richard Turchi for the property located at 0 tonight, Big Oak Road, Yardley, Pennsylvania, tax parcel 20-032-023-002. Requesting a variance from township zoning orders 200-51.B6 small b to permit protection of 27.6% of woodlands from disturbance where 70% protection is otherwise required. Unusually, for these situations, we don't normally recommend opposition on all the matters to come before the board. However, this particular one, we do recommend opposition as well.
Mr. Chair, I move that we oppose, enter to oppose an appeal number Z-23-2028.
Second?
Comment? I'll just say we have woodlands ordinances and resource protection ordinances for a reason.
Yeah, if that person comes and asks for a waiver from the tree fee, there will not, I won't hold back on my words.
I wholeheartedly appreciate that. Any public comment? Anyone online?
No public
Okay.
comment online.
That being said, call to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 3-0 to oppose.
Thank you. And that's all I have tonight.
Community Development, Mr. Majewski, is that you?
Yes, we have several items. The first one is consideration of an extension of time for the 1566 LLC subdivision to October 15th, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the extension of time for the 1566 LLC subdivision, October 15, 2023.
Second.
Word comment? Public comment? Online? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Next.
You have before you a certificate of appropriateness for 679 Stony Hill Road. That's the Wells Fargo Bank that is near the McCaffreys. They're doing a rebranding of their signs, and Harb recommended approval of the application as submitted.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for 679 Stony Hill Road, the Wells Fargo Bank signs.
Second.
Word comment?
Yeah, quite, real simple. Wells Fargo may be a client of the company I work for, but the amount is de minimis and, I don't use their services in any way, but just a full disclosure.
It does not require recusal.
That's, yeah.
Hard vote on this at the last meeting?
Yes,
They have a quorum?
yes.
They did? Okay. I know one of their votes is 2-1, but they're a 7-member board. That would only be 3 of 7 instead of 4 of 7. Does that matter? Because that comes up on the next one too.
I'm sorry, it's a record, it's a advisory board, so I don't think, I mean, you take it for what, for the weight versus admissibility is what we call it in my business. So yes, you can accept it whatever weight.
Just making sure.
I'm sorry, John.
Okay. To explain, any additional board comment? No? Public comment? Online? No? All right, call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next one.
Second.
All right, so we get a motion in a second. The only comment or question I have on this one, I think there was a condition that they have to do something that Mr. Hines had asked for, and I didn't see what Mr. Hines had asked for. So did they do whatever that was?
Yeah, they have committed to doing what Mr. Hines had asked for. They wanted to see the detail on the ramp that goes into the building. And then also they wanted the color of the mortar that's going into the joints in the where they touch it up. It's a minor part of the application.
Okay. Again, because it's Prickett Preserve and the process we went through previously for the barn, I just want to make sure that personally, I want to make sure that Harb is on board and that the applicant is held to what they said they were going to do.
And the applicant is agreeable to all of the conditions.
Again, they voted 2-1 in favor of this based on the memo advisory, but because they're an advisory board, they don't need a quorum. Correct?
I mean, that's essentially correct. I mean, you prefer for them to have a quorum, but it doesn't mean that their action, if it was binding on the township, it'd be a wholly different story, obviously, but this is just something. I mean, you don't need necessarily Harb technically to even vote on this, but it's good to have their input. So.
And as part of the overlay code, the overlay ordinance, I think we did put in there that Harb should.
I think you are correct. Yes.
We just want to make sure that we're aware with that.
Right.
I'm okay if they're following our recommendations, I'm okay with it. I just want to make sure that if we can double check the overlay ordinance to make sure that we don't need a quorum vote.
Right. I will look at that
on this particular issue. Would that preclude us from voting tonight and waiting till next meeting?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, if we had to reaffirm it, or if Harb, we could always rescind it with the condition that Harb has a full quorum to do it, but you can do it tonight, I think, subject to that. All right. They're not planning on doing this within the next 2 weeks, are they, Jim?
No.
And any other board comment? Or any public comment? Anyone online? No? Okay. Call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next one.
I'd like to make a motion to award the LMT 2023 tree planting project bid to Park and Landscape and Hardscape LLC in the amount of $65,909.
Second.
Board comment? Now, I'm sorry, the LMT tree planting project bid. How does that relate to what we voted on last? Does that have any connection to what we voted on last meeting? Do a tree planting?
No, these are the, what they identified as fall 2023 plantings. They were, I guess, residuals coming out of the prior, a multi-year tree plan that the EAC and the township ultimately adopted. So there were two requests when they had come before you. One was for updating that multi-year plan, and then the second request related to a fall 2023 tree planting at various locations. Do you have the locations accessible or?
At 11:20, I forget. No, I think it's Memorial Park, Kiowa Fields.
Previously approved.
Brett Allen.
Previously approved.
They had reviewed.
Brett Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got
And one other location.
I have it in my head.
Got it. Yeah. So this relates to the prior multi-year tree planting.
This is now last meeting or meeting before was future.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Get a motion in a second. Any other board comment? Public comment? I'll just say thanks to the EAC for looking into this and working with the Park and Rec Department and others to come up with a plan that we can execute. That being said, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none opposed, motion carries 3-0. Supervisor report, Supervisor Blondie is not in attendance. Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, Farmland Preservation met yesterday and reviewed buffers, as well as talking about a request for access to certain land to which they rejected. But that's all I have.
I have nothing to report.
The only thing I'll report is the Airport Review Board received a letter from Senator Casey's staff saying that they have some members of the Airport Review Board had asked Mr. Casey's staff to possibly do a follow-up letter to the one that they've already provided to the FAA, and they declined to do so given the current situation. There's also, I think I had sent around another. They'd also sent around a letter that I think Senator Sierra had written to DEP to make sure that his office received information. They were looking for us to do something similar. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Sorry. If we could, I don't know. All that is would be direct. I think it would just be directing the manager to put together a letter to DEP asking to be receive updates on airport permitting.
And PFAS issues too.
Yes.
Yeah. So if it pleases the chair, I'd make a motion to direct the township manager to work in concert with the Trenton Mercer Airport Review Committee to draft a letter expressing LMT's concerns over PFAS at the Trenton Mercer Airport and a request to get all updates on upcoming permits, applications to New Jersey DEP to our buddy Sean LaTourette, the chair commissioner.
Second.
All right. Any board comment?
So essentially just puts us as party status. Is that correct?
No, this is just us a letter.
Just a letter.
Make sure you include it in the letter.
Yeah.
Yep, that was all I had.
It's more, so we don't have to go and do Oprah with their version.
Yeah.
Of RTK is Oprah in New Jersey. So just to see if we can get ahead of that. They don't have to do it, but it's good to put it in.
Yeah.
That's all I had. So that's my last. Oh, that was
To vote on that.
second. Sorry, I thought we were just directing. Any public comment on that issue? All right, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Give you additional motion under other business.
Yep. Other business. Yep. So we have Item A under other business supervisor liaison assignments. The reason we have this on here is with Supervisor Weiss's retirement and now Supervisor Coyle's placement on the board. There are Supervisor Weiss had left his liaison assignments open, so we've been trying to cover those. So if there's is this a motion or is this something that the chair just assigned?
Chair assigned, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
You get to assign.
I should have done that something. So it's effectively what we're doing is assigning, I think, and Supervisor Coyle has agreed to this, assigning former Supervisor Weiss's liaison assignments to Supervisor Coyle. Those include planning, park and rec, veterans, and harp. Moving on, B under other business. That's the Susan Circle paving and punch list items that we added earlier.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the township manager issue a request for proposal to solicit bids to pave Susan Circle, complete all punch list items to ensure code compliance prior to dedication to the township with a specific bid alternate for project completion either in 2023 or 2024.
Second,
All right, any board comment on that?
just for clarity, this doesn't assume us as, permanently taking on this expense, correct?
No, I think the issue here is to complete it for the residents, even though legally, as we know, this is in somewhat litigation that we're not obligated to do it, but recognizing public safety, health and welfare issues, township takes us on, it would in all likelihood look for a contribution from the responsible parties. But it's most important to take this action to protect the red.
That's all I wanted to hear.
All right. Any public comment online? Hearing none, call the question. All
No
those in
public
favor?
comment online.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unopposed, motion carries 3-0. I don't believe we have any appointments or reappointments to boards and commissions this evening. No, awesome. I promised it, so I'll do it. Public comment part 2. I know we addressed most public comment early, so if anyone has any public comment on non-agenda items, now's your time. This is your second bite of the apple. Please feel free. Anyone in the audience? No, okay. Anyone online at 11:21?
There's nobody online.
With that, this meeting is adjourned before it becomes the 21st. So
Thank you.
thank you and good night.